Hugo massaged his forehead. It was like hearing his teacher complain about his son. It was definitely John, no one else. The Ares apostles could not see, like Hugo. They only felt the energy emanating from below him was clearly weak. Not knowing how to dig this pile up, Hugo unleashed his golden power into his hand, ordering the others to quickly retreat. Who would dare to stand there? Never before had humanity faced such terrifying creatures pouring in from another dimension. They swarmed, invading human cities, and even nuclear weapons exploding across an entire region were nothing more than a campfire for them to dance and wreak havoc. Humanity called them disasters. Hope was also slowly fading. As everyone resigned themselves to fate, those people appeared with the name the 13 Zodiac Saints. Initially, 12 people were granted power from the supreme gods to deal with the disaster monsters. But suddenly one day, a 13th awakened one appeared from nowhere. Yet I was not blessed by any god. He just suddenly appeared so overwhelmingly. Along with the other 12 saints, he went to the demon tower to eliminate the red-eyed sovereign, the leader of the endlessly multiplying disaster swarm. But afterwards only 12 people left the tower, making everyone stunned and ask, "Where is that 13th person?" Humanity mourned his sacrifice. Teammates cried before the press and media. But that was all bullshit. He did sacrifice himself to kill the red-eyed sovereign, but it was because those damn dogs abandoned him and ran out. When he was struggling the most, he suddenly took a sword from behind from a teammate, then fell straight down the abyss. Unable to get back up, the demons stared intently at him, in a state where his left arm was severed and his right arm was too exhausted to lift. But he was unwilling to die there. He reached for a knife and put it in his mouth, biting down hard, suppressing the groans of pain. He stood up, refusing death. Hatred swelled in his heart. He fought to find a way back to take revenge on those damn dogs who had abandoned him alone in the demon tower. Could he get out of this place? One day before Li Jian was abandoned by his teammates at the demon tower, he and Taksu had an appointment at a fried chicken restaurant. The food had just been served still warm when Taksu stared at his friend's face and uttered a sentence with a serious expression, like coming out to his family tomorrow, "You will die." "Hey, Taksu, do you wish me dead?" The other guy holding 2 chicken thighs burst into laughter, jealous because I am eating 2 thighs at once under his hood. Lon's scarred face was clearly visible under the light. One of his eyes was blind and white. The lack of hair growth and deep brown scars showed the marks of a life-and-death battle from a past time. Hugo was extremely annoyed when he heard his country bumpkin friend Oteksu. He had told him to use his stage name to sound cooler, but the guy kept saying Oteksu over and over again. It drove him crazy. Li Jian continued to happily eat chicken, clucking his tongue and telling Hugo, "Stop overthinking it. I am not that easy to kill, my friend. The disaster beasts that you 12 saints combined and squared would not even be 1/10 of the ones I have killed. So get that crazy idea out of your head." Hugo, although worried, immediately fell silent. With such a solid argument, how could he possibly argue? The demon tower was where the most dangerous disaster beasts reigned. It was also the greatest threat to humanity's safety. Everything began on the last day of the 20th century. The disaster beasts unexpectedly appeared from nothing, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction with overwhelming power. At the moment humanity was plunged into the darkest horror since the dawn of creation, 12 entities claiming to be supreme gods appeared. They promised to bestow upon humans power to overcome the disasters by having 12 awakened ones inherit their strength. 12 people sounds nice. I can be divided by 2 and by 4. Such a perfect, even number. Finally, the 13th awakened one appeared whom no one claimed to have given birth to. To humanity, 13 is an unlucky number, and he was like an embodiment of Judas, the 13th apostle who betrayed Christ at the Last Supper. Even though he was not blessed by any supreme god, this awakened one was extremely powerful, even more so than the 12 saints combined. He was so strong that he became a thorn in the side, a cause for concern for those 12 zodiacs. Guess who that person is? Does the male lead looking like this resemble the guy with 2 chicken thighs and a scarred face at the beginning of the story? Maybe some parts resemble, some don't, but the blind left eye combined with the combo of baldness cannot be mistaken. It is indeed the male lead, Jian. Hugo saw his friend had eliminated all the disaster beasts, making it easy for the whole group to advance inside, so he stepped forward and happily thanked him a few times. Li Jian slumped to the ground, looked up at his friend and said, "Stop flapping your mouth instead of those empty words my friend could buy me. Fried chicken for 5 years, would not that be more practical? Money was not an issue for Hugo, but that old-fashioned nickname was a problem. Only he called him by that name, and no matter how many times he asked him to change it, he would not. It drove him crazy. While everything else could be changed, Lee Jian refused to change the way he addressed his best friend. While these two argued bitterly, two individuals belonging to the 12 Saints laughed gleefully. If we defeat the red-eyed sovereign today, we will be rich beyond measure. The fat guy could not close his mouth after all. It is the strongest disaster beast. Just a rough estimate, we will pocket at least $1 trillion. Li Gian, sitting nearby, heard them and kindly offered his advice. Instead of dreaming of mansions and luxury cars, you should go live in Hawaii for a comfortable life. So many countries have poured all their wealth and assets just to kill that red-eyed sovereign, yet you keep focusing on money to get in, our eggs trying to be smarter than ducks. The fat guy sneered, a vulgar smile spreading across his lips. You do not need to teach rich people how to spend money, okay? Then he hinted that he himself needed a lot of money to fix his scarred face and body, so Li Jian should not act arrogant and lecture him. Li Jian, insulted by them, only thought to himself that he should not waste his breath on this scum. He should just let them wander off so the water would be clear. Yet they still turned their heads back, howling with insane laughter. Let me tell you a tip for making money. Later, do not rush to appear when called. Wait until there are many victims, then show up that way. Your bank account will ring more often. Jian exhaled, speechless and at a loss for words. Saints, what a bunch of bastards. After dealing with the red-eyed sovereign, I must immediately get them out of my life. The whole group walked to a cave with sharp stalactites pointing downwards. 3 individuals from the Saints were astonished and frightened. This is... Then they looked up and had to crane their necks back completely to see the final boss, the red-eyed sovereign of the Demon Tower. It was as big as a mountain with a multitude of horns protruding everywhere. The air around it was scorching hot. Just looking at it, the pressure was already so immense, making even a strong person like Gian cautious. The demon suddenly let out a challenging roar. The cave immediately shook violently. The ground cracked open, spewing forth a ray of magma. Gian flinched, covering himself with his hands, continuously jumping backward. The crack shattered, revealing a boiling river of magma beneath the ground. It pierced through the overlying rock powerfully, shooting straight up into the sky. The Saints also could not bear the pain, screaming by the intense scorching of the magma flow. It pierced through the entire demon tower, thrusting straight into the high sky, illuminating a vast expanse of the heavens. The magma shot out from all sides of the tower, looking no different from fireworks welcoming the foolish humans who dared to set foot in hell. Heat and dust filled the air along with the recent explosion, scaring the Saints, who trembled in fear, only able to stare wide-eyed at the boiling magma river right at their feet. The earthquake had opened up a gigantic supervolcano, separating the demon lord and the intruders. In the hazy smoke, the red-eyed sovereign sat calmly on its throne. Its eyes glowed with malevolence, twisting into a triumphant smile, seeing the monster's immense power. The Saints' eyes widened, shaking like leaves, barely managing to scream run now. The whole group frantically ran in the opposite direction, constantly shouting, "How can we fight against such a hideous thing?" And those cowards dare to call themselves Divine Jian scornfully watched the Saints tuck their tails and flee like beaten dogs, only able to sigh deeply. His hand tightened around the sword hilt. He was alone, but still okay. His entire body erupted with immense power. Even if the sky falls today, it will definitely be me, Jian, who eliminates the red-eyed sovereign. Thinking is doing. He lunged forward with immense force, causing the ground beneath his feet to explode. He jumped directly at the demon lord, determined to fight it to the death. That was the beginning of the story as told by the survivors. As for what happened after that, no one knows that Gian was stabbed by his own teammates and fell into the desperate situation he is in now. How long has it been? He could not remember anymore, not knowing how the world outside had changed. Is there a difference in time inside and outside the tower? I have no idea. Just thinking about it makes my head ache. Currently, only one thought exists in Jian's mind, which is to kill all the demons and monsters in the demon tower. Because this is a special trap that will summon an infinite number of disaster beasts. Those vile Saints thought this was enough to kill him. Forget it. Even though he had lost an arm and was covered in blood, they thought he was dead. I will surely survive and leave this place. By then I swear I will cut off the heads of each and every one of you bastards. Just wait there, even if my teeth bite into this sword until they bleed. My eyes are still wide open, waiting for the day to avenge myself on you sons of bitches. Time flies like a dog running in the field, and in a flash 20 years have passed. A disaster fell, sprawling to the ground, screaming in panic. How could you come all the way here? A husky voice from the opposite side spoke. You are the last one. The two-horned disaster recoiled in horror, shouting, someone save me. Oh my God, wake up. I said it was the last one, so who else would come to save it? Being so stupid deserves a one-way ticket to hell. The person who looked like a brawny man lifted his large flat foot. Stomping it down with a squelch, only red blood gushed out. The disaster lay motionless, dead and stiff. It is finally over. The middle-aged man gasped tiredly. This bearded man is Gion, ladies and gentlemen. The demon tower has really changed him. I almost did not recognize him. I thought killing all the demons would allow me to peacefully log out, but no. Suddenly, the cave shook violently. Rocks and dirt continuously poured down like rain. Could this be the way for me to get out? A giant rock smashed directly into Gion's head as if answering that question. He rolled to the ground unconscious, then was buried under layers of rock and dirt. The author is giving the male lead a lot of trouble. He already has a scarred face and bald head at the beginning of the story, and after one chapter, he gets hit in the head by a rock and dies. The real world out there under the blue sky was nothing but desolation and ruins. Underneath the pile of rubble, there was a desperate scream. Oh, run away. That wailing sound belonged to two young men running like mad. Today should have been a safe day, so they went out for a stroll. Who would have thought that what was madly chasing them was not girls, but 3 high-level disaster wolves? Ha ha ha, that is it. Oh my, because he was too panicked. The black-haired boy laughed and cried, damn it, I knew I should have trusted my intuition. This spiritual system player had foreseen that he would encounter an extremely powerful monster today, but he still recklessly went out. From behind, the wolf leaped up, rushing straight between the two young men, making them scream in extreme fear. Powerlessly slamming his hand on the ground, the black-haired boy still blurted out, damn it. The disaster wolves had surrounded them from all directions. Now they could only surrender to death. What else could they do? The black-haired man angrily gnashed his teeth. If only Gion had survived and emerged from the demon tower back then, these wolves would just be 7-course dogs. A spiritual system player is different. His wish came true, brother. The gate of the demon tower suddenly opened. The two old men and the young man looked up in surprise, seeing a dazzling light, like a flash that suddenly appeared completely white. Immediately after, a huge explosion with brutal destructive power occurred, shaking the entire city. The black-haired and brown-haired men had to try very hard to stay upright, standing near the tower, without being blown away to witness the next moment. The earthquake subsided, only smoke and dust rose. The demon tower had disappeared at some point, leaving behind a volcanic crater. But these two young men, like cockroaches, still did not die now, struggling to crawl out, not understanding what had just happened. Suddenly, the brown-haired man's mouth gaped open, calling to the person next to him, Jimin, there is someone. As he spoke, he trembled, pointing towards the recently collapsed tower, making his friend quickly look as well. A muscular, veiny arm appeared in the smoke, looking like this. It certainly was not a monster. That is right. A tall, sturdy figure stood prominently amidst the desolate sea of fire. That person repeatedly pounded his fist angrily, cursing, your great-grandfather's damn dogs have returned. Gion angrily made his comeback to the real world, with his former muscular body constantly cursing the bastards who had tricked him into that damned trap years ago. The hatred of being deceived, combined with the physical and mental pain of being tormented in the demon tower, merged into a terrifying rage. You damn saints, you are dead meat. Gion's eyes glowed with frantic hatred. He roared. He definitely had to make them taste true despair. On that chaotic pile of rubble, some sounds loudly echoed, making the two guys below bewildered, not knowing what was happening, only seeing the disaster beasts being brutally beaten. That person threw a hook with one hand. One foot stomped another one's head flat. Holy cow, I cannot believe it. The two old men and the young man were astonished, mouths agape. Even high-level awakened ones would find it hard to defeat orange-level monsters, yet he could easily handle them. So amazing. Holding the head of a disaster with one hand, stepping on the pile of its comrades' corpses with his foot, Gion chuckled gleefully. Accidentally glancing to the side, he suddenly saw some shadows lurking. He jumped up and disappeared from the sight of these two, leaving them with big question marks. Less than a few seconds later, suddenly, He jumped down from nowhere, destroying the two old men and the young man's hiding place, scaring them out of their wits. Why are you attacking us? Jimin nervously retreated while the brown-haired guy next to him was already in tears. So they were humans. They kept being stealthy, making Gion think there was a monster left. He turned his head this way and that, checking the situation. It seemed he had cleared everything. Seeing this, the two guys breathed a sigh of relief, then immediately began discussing excitedly about the person in front of them. Black-haired Jimin intended to sell the news of his escape from the tower to the tabloids, but brown-haired immediately stopped him, saying, "If you talk nonsense, he will skewer you." Seeing this, the two guys breathed a sigh of relief, then immediately began discussing excitedly about the person in front of them. Black-haired Jimin intended to sell the news of his escape from the tower to the tabloids, but brown-haired immediately stopped him, saying, "If you talk nonsense, he will skewer you." It turned out that right behind him was the remaining disaster beast, its eyes red drool dripping, glaring down at the one who had just massacred the entire wolf pack. The alpha wolf. The two guys screamed in horror, tears and snot flying everywhere. Seeing him just standing there smiling like an idiot, they even kindly reminded him, "Run now, big brother." At the same time, the wolf's eyes lit up brightly with energy flashes crackling around its mouth. It angrily opened its mouth wide, spewing fire at the humans. Hastily covering their heads, Jimin and his comrades tightly gritted their teeth in fear at the alpha wolf's sudden attack. The terrifying energy surge was aimed directly at the heads of the foolish humans. Powerful flames poured down, incinerating everything in their path. The entire area lit up brightly from that formidable firepower. After a long while, the smoke and fire gradually dissipated. Are we still alive? These two gods were lucky enough to escape death once again, living long enough to become goddamn legends. Directly hitting their eyes was a steady back and hair fluttering in the thick smoke. It was Gion who used a skill to protect the whole group from the wolf's attack. He protected us. The two guys' eyes widened in astonishment. A crisp laugh suddenly echoed. Truly a blockhead. An idiot. Gion's entire body erupted with energy, leaping high in the air to the astonishment of both the monster and the two lovebirds. His hand clenched into a fist. He plunged downwards. "If you are just a stupid dog, then die." As if rocket-powered, he thundered towards the beast. Delivering an extremely powerful punch to its head, rocks and dirt shattered into hundreds of thousands of pieces from this move, making the two gods panic, almost dropping their jaws. Gently landing on the ground, Gion smiled triumphantly as the alpha wolf collapsed behind him. Its massive carcass lay sprawled on the ground, a bit unlucky for it, as it had provoked the wrong person. "So it is really over now," he coughed because of too much dust. Then he glanced back. "Hey, you two," making them flinch and almost roll off the stand. A dangerous aura immediately radiated around Gion. He slowly turned his head backward, making the two men stiffen, their voices trembling as they asked, where should we go? "Of course, go buy me some food." Gion smiled cheerfully. His terrifying demeanor completely vanished. Leaving a moment of silence between the three, he scratched his head and said with a chuckle in clothes too, making the two young men speechless, Why did you not say so at first? Did you want to scare us out of our wits?" A few hours later at a restaurant, the young man in the blue shirt slammed the bowl as big as a potty onto the table. While the two gods on this side looked at the bill, their faces turned pale, wanting to just disappear. "You ate so much, this pile is equal to the portions of 120 people. The young man in the blue shirt, who had eaten until his belly protruded like Gion, was sitting behind a towering stack of plates. "It is still our male lead. Gion, everyone does not. He looked impressive. Seeing the distressed expressions of the two old men and the young man, he grumbled, "I know you do not have much money. I have already eaten less." Who said they promised to buy him everything to repay his life-saving grace? It is only a little bit and they are already complaining. I need another portion of noodles to cleanse my palate, seeing him order more food. The brown-haired guy bristled, jumping up. Human endurance has its limits. Please understand, for 20 years he was trapped in the tower. I do not know what he ate anymore. Black-haired Jimin calmly asked for the identity of the glutton who suddenly appeared around the tower. It could only be an apostle or a saint troop leader. What is this apostle and saint troop business? I came out of the tower. Gion happily and calmly changed the subject, asking who these two were. He could feel magic from Jimin, so he must not be an ordinary person either. Because he is an apostle. The brown-haired guy next to him helped answer his questions, and Jimin was puffing out his chest proudly. Am I not also an awakened one, blessed by the gods? He was about to scoop a mouthful of rice, but hearing Saint and God made Jian angry. Why should I serve those damned bastards? But suddenly he saw his reflection in the spoon. TF, whose smooth, rosy face is this? He sprang up like a spring, shouting, Where is a mirror, making the waitress nervously point to the other side. Jian hastily took off his shirt. I know he has a good muscular body, but why take off your clothes in someone else's restaurant? Hey! He was utterly astonished to see a flawless, glowing face and a 16-pack body without a single scar in the mirror. His wounds were extremely difficult to heal. After kneading for a while, Jian was sure he had returned to his original form, even more handsome than before. Even his severed left arm had been healed. While admiring his new arm, he discovered a faint mark. Suddenly, from that mark, something slowly became clear. Just a few seconds later, a tiny snake fully materialized as soon as he clearly saw the snake's form. Jian's entire arm hurt so much that he had to clench it, enduring some kind of power surging within him. Then suddenly, a system appeared with the words, You have just experienced death and achieved the impossible feat. His previous abilities would be transferred to his new body. All achievements in the tower would also be converted into experience points. At the same time, he received the Zodiac skill. Furthermore, Jian could use the power of the Ophiuchus constellation. Jian painfully accepted the power from that energy source. Then slowly closed his eyes. His body seemed to sink into an indefinite void. When he opened his eyes, he found himself flying amidst the Milky Way. Facing him was the glowing red eyes of a snake spirit extremely close to him. It twisted its massive body, coiled up, and pressed its head close to Jian. His face showed clear signs of shock and bewilderment. His hands, as if pulled by an invisible energy, made him touch the head of the snake spirit. The point of contact on his skin glowed with a magical light, as if the entire universe was bestowing blessings upon him, but just a second later, all images suddenly disappeared. Jian was sitting on the ground, his face full of astonishment. His face was drenched in sweat. He had not fully recovered, unsure if what he had just seen was real or a dream. Hey bro, are you okay? Jimin suddenly appeared in front of him, pulling Jian's soul back to reality. He fumbled with his hands, asking Jimin, Have you seen a snake this big? I have not seen any snakes, but I clearly saw you dancing naked in front of the mirror. Jimin explained, but he did not want to hear it anymore. Why did no one see that snake demon? Seeing him mumbling to his hand again, the two guys were a bit concerned about the sanity of the person who had just saved them. He must be a bit out of his mind. Feeling sad and extremely confused, a notification appeared again, congratulating him on becoming the owner of the constellation Ophiuchus. Along with a series of other information running back and forth, the 13th god Gaon, the chairman of Ophiuchus, and skills were continuously activated. Among them, the super regeneration skill caught his attention the most. This skill helps to restore all damage to the body, but resistance will be reduced by 50% for 1032 hours. Now he understood that this new body was due to that skill, but why had he never heard the saints mention this before? Moreover, he did not even feel the presence of any god. Oh well, forget about it. As long as his body was restored, he did not have to worry about other things. The only thing he wanted to do most at this moment was to kill every bastard who stabbed him in the back. Along with the hypocritical saints who abandoned him in the demon tower, just thinking about torturing those bastards, Jian became unusually excited. The murderous aura emanating from him made the two old men and the young man tremble. At the collapsed demon tower, the police had cordoned off the area. An investigation team was sent to find out the cause of this impenetrable place's disappearance. The inspectors believed that this would only cause more chaos in the world. Perhaps it was caused by Jian's fan club members, or perhaps by the apostles who hated him. Apostles. Mr. Thin Khan looked at these disaster wolves with skepticism. Even high-level saints find it difficult to hold them back, let alone nameless nobodies, proving that the perpetrator of all this is extremely powerful. Mr. Fat Can, after hearing this, also felt a bit nervous. Could it be that Jian has really returned? God only knows, my friend, Mr. Thin Khan exhaled. Just wait a little longer. Everything will become clear soon. In the green zone of the city, where a building with more than 10 stories stood tall, cameras were operating at full capacity. Reporters frantically asked questions about the collapse of the demon tower, constantly wondering if the 13th Saint Jian had returned. Yang Wei the Pulsing. Yang Saint. The representative answering the interview today was clearly not happy with these questions. He raised the microphone. Hello. I have nothing to say about this matter. Then he walked away, dismissing them amidst the angry shouts of the reporters. What was that? Was that an answer or not? The Rolls-Royce sped through the damned street. Yang Wei angrily smashed his glasses. What was it about that bastard Gion that interested those vultures so much? It turned out this guy was bitter because Gion had stolen all his spotlight. No one was paying attention to him, which made him so furious. As for that scarred guy, they said he was still alive. After 20 years of being abandoned in that tower, that is impossible. Yang Wei gnashed his teeth, reassuring himself there were tens of thousands of demons in there, and all of them were high level. Defeating the red-eyed sovereign was already a miracle. He could not have survived all those injuries. Most importantly, that bastard did not receive blessings from the gods like him. But what if Lon really survived? Yang Wei frowned deeply, exhaling a puff of shisha smoke in a daze. Then he flew into a rage again. At worst, I will just kill him one more time. At the same time, Gion, who had eaten until his stomach was full, was eagerly looking at his phone, muttering to himself, "Should I eliminate this bastard first?" Also, under the blue sky at an airport far away, specifically in England, a private jet had just landed. New leather shoes appeared on the boarding stairs, and endless greetings rang out. "It is our honor to welcome one of the 12 Zodiac Saints." The airport staff respectfully bowed 90 degrees. Greeting the blond man. That was Hugo the Sagittarius Saint. Hugo, with his hands in his pockets, leisurely walked down, and the staff immediately directed him to a car to go to the Prime Minister's office. As soon as he left, the security guards immediately switched to fanboy mode, praising him from head to toe. As expected of a saint, even the government has to yield a few points. The supercar sped towards the Prime Minister's office. Hugo sat in the car, his eyes gazing into the distance. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, interrupting his thoughts. Damn reporters. Hugo scowled. They have been bothering him for days because of the ridiculous rumor that Gion is still alive. Looking at the phone, seeing unfamiliar numbers calling, Hugo angrily slammed his hand down. It has been more than 20 years. How could he still be alive? Hugo hung up immediately to avoid hearing the ringtone. Then he stared blankly out the window again, remembering the day he warned his best friend about death. But he still confidently laughed, chewing chicken loudly. It is just death. What is there to be afraid of? Throughout the journey of conquering the Demon Tower, Hugo had been outside dealing with the disasters under Gion's command. At that time, he secretly prayed that his prophecy was wrong, so his best friend would return safely. But those saints abandoned Gion. They gleefully returned to claim the red-eyed sovereign's head, being praised and recognized for their achievements as heroes revered as saints. From then on, power and money also poured in like a flood in the following days. Hugo in the hospital still did not believe that Gion was dead. He repeatedly requested a search, but it was unsuccessful. Hugo still clearly remembered the bastard Jean-Louis Moleng, the Cancer Constellation chairman, who completely ignored his request to search for Gion. He gave the reason that the beasts in the tower would escape and harm the people, and no matter how strong Gion was, he could not survive alone inside. He knew that, so he arrogantly said, "If you are worried about Gion, you can go search for him yourself," and even threatened to strip Hugo of his saint title. His despicable expression, Hugo still remembered clearly to this day. Although very distressed, Hugo had to clench his teeth and endure. 20 years had passed, and there was no news. Perhaps Moleng was right. That was impossible, and now it was too late. But from Hugo's eyes full of unspoken thoughts, it was clear he always remembered his best friend's defiant demeanor. Just then, the driver announced that the Prime Minister was calling. He hastily put his thoughts aside and answered the phone immediately. "What can I do for you, sir?" As soon as he picked up, the Prime Minister asked Hugo about the collapse of the tower, making him completely disheartened first, the reporters, now him. Again, it was too tiring. He secretly thought the Prime Minister just wanted to use this to increase his re-election votes. He immediately refused, firmly asserting that he was dead. The Demon Tower incident was just caused by the people in his friend's fan club. Angrily thinking that the Prime Minister just wanted to take advantage of this to increase his re-election votes, he was about to lecture the old man when he immediately denied it. The Prime Minister's face clearly showed tension as he announced a strange phone call. "What kind of call?" Hugo asked, sitting upright, not finishing his sentence, leaving others waiting. It was Gion's exclusive communication line. The answer was like a bolt from the blue. Hugo could not contain his excitement and agitation, frantically slamming his hands on the chair and screaming loudly, "Stop the car." It was not until the car screeched to a halt that he temporarily calmed down, frantically reaching for his phone. "Don't tell me Gion just called." The screen immediately displayed 30 missed calls along with a voicemail. Damn it. Hugo's mouth hung open, worried. He pressed the voicemail, slowly brought it to his ear, his mind in complete chaos. "Hey, oh, Takesue," a familiar, playful voice rang out. "I will find you and kill you." Good luck. Hugo was completely rigid and bewildered after hearing it. His eyes stared blankly into the void, Lee Gian. Immediately after, he ordered the driver to turn back to the airport, forgetting all about the business trip. What the hell is a prime minister? I have to go find my best friend. Returning to the restaurant in Korea, Gian smirked, staring at his phone. This kid, oh, Takesue, has grown up. How dare he ignore my call? If I catch him, he is dead for sure. Looking at the smartphone with delight, Gian was a little excited, drooling. He was thrown into the tower in 2005. Now it is 2025. The world has changed so much. He still has not adapted. Jimin then happily explained to the person in front of him, "You can connect to the internet to read the news too." Really, I must quickly find my name to see if there is anything interesting. Jimin kindly showed him where to see the top trending articles. A series of information related to Gian were all prominently ranked high, making both the owner and the kid Jimin widen their eyes in admiration. But the joy did not last long. It quickly faded. The pile of hate comments was harshly hitting his face. They dared to call him useless, and then the 12 saints had to carry him until their backs broke. Does not that make his blood boil? Gian furiously gripped his phone, making his little brother Jimin jump in fear. "My phone, brother, please be gentle. Your daddy is the one who defeated the red-eyed sovereign, you brainless idiots," Gian furiously raged. But he immediately calmed down, not bothering to argue with idiots. Scrolling through a few more articles, he suddenly saw a news article with a headline about his will. He remembered that back then, Gian had agreed to donate all his assets to the orphanage and the scholarship fund. He happily clicked on the link, hoping that this will would be carried out properly. But to his surprise, all of his assets had been completely seized by the saints except Hugo, and they even twisted the information, claiming he wrote the will himself and left it to them. "Damn you all!" Gian exploded in rage, crushing his phone. "I will chop you all into 100 pieces." Ayman fell to his knees in despair, looking at his newly bought smartphone, now just a pile of scrap metal. Crying goodbye, my love, what a tragic death, crushed to pieces. After reading the news articles, Gian fell silent, lost in thought. What should I do now? Even though he really wanted to show off his spectacular comeback. But now he looked too different from 20 years ago, fearing that if he spoke no one would believe him, and they would send him to a mental hospital. Gian decided to remain silent and secretly deal with each saint, then figure things out later. The kid Jimin was still crying, bidding farewell to his phone. It turned out this guy had not even finished paying for it in installments before Gian destroyed it. While the brown-haired guy was patting his friend's back to comfort him, he suddenly felt a strange energy from behind. The system confirmed a warning that someone was watching, and this foul smell also seemed familiar. Thinking this, Gian quickly made an excuse to go outside and breathe some fresh air to investigate the surroundings. His flip-flops stopped at that spot. A pile of goat heads were floating towards him. Isn't this the guardian deity of Ares? Were they not controlled by the supreme gods, acting according to their will? What are they doing here? Gian did not know, but the system knew that these guardians were showing off to him, demanding delicious and nutritious offerings because the power of the supreme gods had greatly diminished. Damn it, these damn bastards, what the hell are you doing? Gian immediately went berserk. He hated this kind of embezzlement and robbery of assets the most. An angry energy surged today. I will teach you a lesson you will never forget. As he walked towards the goat heads with surging momentum, he suddenly heard curses. Damn it, it is that crazy. Gian again. He was about to fight when he heard someone curse his name directly. He turned around and saw a couple cursing the legendary Gian. These past few days, news about him had been flooding the news feeds, annoying them. He is dead, so why do people still care? It is annoying. The sunlight shone on the gleaming badge on their chest. Jimin immediately recognized it as the symbol of the Gemini Association. For some reason, a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. Seeing Gian just standing there blocking the couple's way, Jimin nervously screamed, "Hey, come here quickly, do not get involved with those people." But he still stood still, showing no emotion. Making the fat guy angry, "Do you like looking, get out of my way?" Seeing this, the two young men worriedly cried, "Oh no, we are screwed, this trip is completely over, guys." Not seeing any reaction from him, the fat guy took a drag from his cigarette, then blew it directly into Gion's face. "Are you mad?" He did not know that he had just activated the destruction mode within Gian. He even provocatively headbutted him. "If you are mad, then hit me." His girlfriend hastily stopped him, not because she was afraid of him starting a fight, but because she was afraid this scruffy young man would piss his pants. After that, they walked away, not forgetting to leave a remark dickhead, then constantly claiming that he belonged to the loser group that supported Jian. Even though they had gone far away, their taunts kept piercing his eardrums. Jimin saw Gaon control his anger, then ran over to remind him. Those two belong to rank a Gemini constellation. If you mess with them, it will be hard to survive. Before he even finished speaking, Jian roared, "Hey, you damned insects!" Jimin's eyes welled up with tears again. He secretly thought to himself this time, "I am definitely dead, man." Not believing that loser would dare to talk back to them, the two men angrily turned back and growled, "Who did you just call?" He only saw Jian and a surging wave of anger. "I called you. You two are quite a pair." The fat guy hastily stomped towards him. He pressed his face close to Gian's, snarling, "If you are so good, say it again." At this point, his challenge to Gian was completely wrong. He leisurely raised his hand. With a light flick, the fat guy was sent flying dozens of meters away like a bag of trash. His large fat body slammed to the ground, tearing up the entire area into a pile of rubble, making the short-haired girl scream in fear. And the two cowardly guys were also so scared that their jaws dropped. Gian was gleefully laughing at the fat guy's spectacular fall. He did not care about the angry glare of the guy's girlfriend directed at him a moment later. He suddenly burst out laughing. "Do you think I did not know you were behind me?" The short-haired girl, taking advantage of his inattention, had sneaked behind him, intending to gather strength for a sneak attack. But she did not expect to be caught so easily. Another slap was unleashed. The girl was sent flying, just like her boyfriend, a perfect pair of flattened cockroaches. Looking at her fall to the ground, he just coldly uttered a sentence, weak and still showing off. The Jimin group trembled, asking why he dared to use his power in the middle of the street. Isn't he afraid of Mr. Khan coming to arrest him? These guys are really funny. How could his power be so weak? If I unleash my true skill, that couple would have been sold for salt a long time ago. Oh my God. He mercilessly beat the rank A apostle with just a flick of his finger. Why do these two old men and the young man keep going from one surprise to another today? Their mouths are constantly agape. Ignoring the excessive reactions of those fools, Gion's eyes were drawn to something else. He squatted down next to the fat guy, picked up his necklace, then snatched it away. Isn't this a holy relic? He had noticed it since he fought with the guy. How could such an ignorant thug possess such a valuable item? He remembered that before only the 13 saints were allowed to wear this. Now it is widely circulated like this. What about limited edition items? Jimin was astonished that this god knew nothing, so he had to use his mind-reading technique to explain to him humanity was almost extinct after the disasters appeared decades ago. Humanity has survived until now, thanks to the supreme gods and the saints they chose, but 12 people cannot protect the entire world. They had to gather people and establish holy guilds. Anyone who can awaken will be granted power by the saints and are called apostles like me. Brother, please forgive my nephew for showing off a little from then on. A ranking system was created to divide ranks, headed by saints, down to SS rank commanders below. S rank commanders are called the 10 stars. From rank A downwards, all are generally called apostles. The supreme gods stand above all. Their power comes from the absolute faith of the apostles. So they devised a bunch of competitions to increase the number of people joining the Holy Guild. Those who are chosen will be given gifts and all sorts of things. Jimin just briefly summarized it like that. Understand. If you understand, and if you don't try to understand. What the hell? I have only been absent for 20 years and the world has gone crazy. I do not understand this convoluted system at all. Look, Jimin eagerly pointed to the sky, but not in endless despair. Look, Jimin eagerly pointed to the sky, but not with endless despair. But it was just a group of guardian deities surrounding Gion. The system informed him that among the group in front, there were guardian deities of prosperity and greed. They wanted him to kill the couple just to see blood spilled. In return, Gion would receive a gift, a kind of quid pro quo. That young man looked exhausted just from a glance. There is no greater foolishness than attracting the attention of guardian deities. If they speak and you do not comply, it is no different from rejecting the words of the supreme gods. Then, enduring their wrath, he was about to advise his friend to follow their words. Gion let out a chuckle, looking up not happy at all, but his eyes were irritated and annoyed. A moment ago, I was wondering why Yang Wei's hounds were here. Now I understand everyone from the Yang faction wants to fill their stomachs with delicious food. Picking up the worn-out flip-flops from someone's bathroom, Gion mumbled some phrases that clearly sounded like curses. He stomped heavily on the sidewalk with a thud, creating a swirling aftershock, continuously gushing and sweeping away all the guardian deities above. These guys are probably only good at bragging, not even able to resist one bit against this dazzling and powerful light. One kick from Gaon blew away all the guardian deities in the city, restoring the clear blue sky. Jimin opened his eyes full of bewilderment, seeing Gaon's familiar trademark smile. Above, the guardian deities had scattered, and without them and the barriers, the sky's original color became clear. And from here, Jimin realized that this scruffy young man was not normal at all. Suddenly, he called out his full name, Han Jimin, then pointed at the foaming-at-the-mouth fat guy and asked, "Again, did you just say this was a Gemini apostle?" "Yes, that guild is both crowded and dangerous. Many members also have influential figures. No one wants to mess with them." Suddenly, hearing Gion ask a random question, "Are they very rich?" Jimin was about to ask again when he saw him flash a villainous smile. "Look at all the things this guy is wearing. They are all designer brands. My time has come." Gion squatted down, snatching the LV shirt, singing "La La La." "Now I do not have to spend money on clothes. 20 years in the Demon Tower, living no different from a hairy ape in an abandoned zoo. Now with a fresh haircut." Jimin gave him a slap, praising him, saying he looked quite handsome, making Gion genuinely shy. Plus, back then, even though he was the 13th saint, his power often backfired. Every gust of wind was like blowing through a field of dandelions, making his hair fly wildly, looking like a patchy-haired uncle next door now with a handsome idle haircut. How could Gion not be pleased? Suddenly, a buzzing sound next to him caught Gion's attention. He looked over unhappily and discovered it was a mosquito-like monster nearby. "If there is no electric swatter, I will use my hand." Gion hated these insects, so he extended his powerful hand to crush it, releasing the remnants in front of Jimin's admiring eyes. Just killed one, and a few more buzzing sounds. Gion's dog-like ears became increasingly picky. Seeing this, Jimin curiously asked, "You know the saying, flies gather on shit. Is that you? Am I supposed to admit I am shit?" Gion strongly dismissed Jimin's hypothesis, looking around to find what attracted these insects. His eyes landed on some colorful, cumbersome items on the cabinet shelf, immediately telling him that the reason was those items. That statue of the goddess, which Gion called an evil artifact that attracted disasters, Jimin cried without tears. "I did not pick that up from the dump. I received it directly from the Aries saint." His face was extremely proud as he introduced the blessed item from the saint. A gust of wind instantly swept 2 parts of the statue to Dalat. Moreover, Gion acted as if he had just touched something filthy. Ignoring Jimin's aching heart, the item he had cradled like a precious flower was now in Gion's hand, with a cold expression. He said this mask is for monitoring the buyer kid. After speaking, he rummaged through all the nooks and crannies, this music box for stealing information. This watch attracting disaster beasts, he found more and more filthy things in the house. Gion realized that those bastards not only stole his money, but also sold evil artifacts to unsuspecting people to siphon their money. Just thinking about it made his forehead and face twitch gradually. No matter how much Jimin regretted it, he dared not approach to stop him. From outside the house, Gion's roar was clearly heard, "Throw everything away." Suddenly the door opened. The sound made Gion, who was about to crush the evil watch, stop for about 2 seconds. Glancing at the red-haired boy who had just entered the house with a grim expression, Gion, despite being in someone else's house, blurted out, "Who the hell are you, and why are you here?" Jimin tried to put on a conciliatory expression, calling, "Brother Sung-jae, are you back?" But Sung-jae did not listen. He only heard Gion's rude question. He touched his face and retorted, "You are asking who I am. I am the owner of this house." Sung-jae's entire body erupted with a blue power, his face darkened, ready to protect his house. Gion just said, "Ah," as if he had just realized that it was perfectly normal for the homeowner to enter his own house, surrounded by the 3 of them scattered and broken items. It suddenly felt like being caught cheating. From outside Yang Wei's Aries Holy Guild, the desperate shouts of the fat man could be heard. Yang Wei heard the news that the guardian deity in Korea had disappeared, and his face turned pale. His subordinate below confirmed it again, adding that the Aries Holy Guild branch in South Korea was in a state of extreme panic because of this. Yang Wei also felt that something was wrong because he had never heard of this happening before. Guardian deities are subordinates of the supreme gods. No fake awakened one would dare to drive them away. Who would dare to act so brazenly? Pointing to his subordinate, he instructed him to contact the other saints to see what the situation was. Yang Wei was about to leave when he heard additional information that the Sagittarius side had not responded. That Hugo is now a mercenary in England, it is normal not to be able to contact him. Yang Wei originally did not care, but his subordinate hesitated, then said that Hugo had left England immediately after arriving. Where did he go? This made Yang Wei pay attention, and when he heard that Hugo's destination was also Korea, he immediately turned around and thought for a long time. Could such a coincidence have a reason? From the beginning, Hugo was Jeon's best friend. After Jeon was buried in the Demon Tower, he rarely returned to Korea. Could it be because of the rumor that Jeon is still alive that has been spreading recently? If it is just a rumor and Hugo goes there to confirm it, then it is fine. But if that scarred, long-haired guy really survived and returned, then what would Yang Wei do? He immediately grabbed the intricately carved candle holder nearby. He threw it directly at the subordinate below to vent his anger. Luckily, he dodged in time. Investigate this thoroughly, and what else say it now? Seeing his boss lose patience when he heard about Jeon, the subordinate was also nervous, but there was still something to report. An Ares apostle was found unconscious near where the guardian deity disappeared. He was left on the cracked road with only his underwear on, according to witnesses. He had a conflict with a handsome man, but no one knew how handsome he was. So Yang Wei's eyes just stared at the broken candle holder on the ground, immediately denying it. It definitely was not Gaon, because he is a scarred, blind-eyed man with a large bald spot. But in any case, all these things were too coincidental. Plus the rumor that Lon has returned and Yang Wei's failure to conquer the Spider Queen could shake his political standing. Not allowing that to happen, Yang Wei demanded a private jet to pick him up immediately. His subordinate looked up, somewhat confused. Is the saint going there himself? Yes. Now entrusting matters to those underlings. Yang Wei is not at ease. He must go to Korea himself to see what is happening. He swung his jacket over his shoulder and clipped a cigar to look like a busy man, bringing some of his subordinates with him to witness what was happening in South Korea firsthand. That night in the Ares-affiliated hospital, the sound of the machine connected to a motionless person on the bed beeped steadily, along with the sound of the breathing machine, made the elderly man furiously roar again. Who made my grandson like this? He beat my grandson to a pulp and stripped him naked, and he still hasn't woken up, and I don't even know who the culprit is. He pointed at a man in a white suit leaning against the wall, stubbornly demanding an answer. A standard answer from the S-rank Ares apostle came from Min Sung-hoon's mouth saying, "Don't worry. The Ares Holy Guild sent me here to take care of this." Sung-jae thought he had just heard the funniest thing in the world, but he couldn't laugh. He just frowned and asked, "Did you meet this guy at the Demon Tower?" And then this guy cleared out all the disaster beasts with his bare hands, and he even defeated an A-rank apostle. Jimin knew his story sounded like he was high, but he couldn't do anything but nod vigorously to increase credibility. But even if he believed that, Sung-jae was still furious because this guy entered someone else's house and smashed things with an extremely unreasonable excuse that all the furniture in this house was evil artifacts and fakes. What guild do you belong to that you dare to say such things? But does Gion look like he needs to join a guild? He let out a cackle, making Sung-jae want to shut him up, but he still managed to ask which supreme god he followed. Those guys should follow me instead. John did not hit the main point at all, and whenever he heard about those 12 idiots, a vein popped out on his head. No matter what he was asked, Jian gave absurd answers, as if he was someone new to this world. Sung-jae was completely speechless. He patiently asked the final question, "What is your name?" If he gave another nonsensical answer, he would surely get punched. "It is Jaeon." He stated his name as if it was the most normal thing, but Sung-jae erupted in a furious blaze of indignation at his answer. Then he unleashed all his power and roared, "How dare you impersonate my Lord Jeon on. Shimin was scared to death, quickly reminding him, "We are still inside the house, Grandpa. It is a rental. Don't be crazy." But Sung-jae was in a fit of rage. He did not care. He just unleashed all the magic of the Ares Apostle, causing the system panel to pop up a warning to John immediately. "It looks cool and all, but you are just going to burn this house down," Jeon kindly warned. Then he activated the divinity of suspension skill. He saw Sung-jae's true strength. He was at rank A with the title Punisher. What caught his attention the most were Sung-jae's eyes blazing with the blue flame of an S-rank skill. Pyromancer along with an A-rank Eternal Ice Seal. More carefully, John also read that this kid's personality was stubborn with his idol and a learning genius. He smirked. This kid is so young, yet he can use high-level summoning magic. Is it because he is a learning genius? Pretty cool. He is even casting 2 eyes on the statue behind him, about to blow this apartment complex to smithereens. Chimin almost peed his pants, screaming, "Oh brother, run quickly. Sung Jae is an A-rank Aries apostle. If you mess with his idol Jeon, you are in for it." Sung Jae tilted his head, warning Chimin, "Get out of here immediately, do not die with me. You can mess with anyone, but mimicking my idol will not end well." John suddenly appeared right behind Sung Jae, with a hip-hop never-dies hand gesture, grinning, making him flinch. As soon as he turned around, he took a full flick from John, sending his head crashing into the house wall. Well, that is fine if this crazy guy burns down the house. Where will he shower and rest? Chimin did not care about the house anymore. He just hoped Sung Jae would not die. John still had that perverted grin on his face, which only doubled Chimin's worry. Why do you say he is fine when Sung Jae looks like he is having a seizure? John left the red-haired, foaming-at-the-mouth guy to Chimin, and himself yawned and stumbled into a nearby room to sleep. Little did he know when the door just opened. What hit his eyes was an entire room full of statues and models, chibi versions of the legendary Jaeon, restored with color and healed scars incredibly lifelike. Chimin carried Sung Jae in and explained that his brother was just obsessed with John. It is nothing but he is John. Looking at his perfectly intact head, he was not used to it, so he snapped it off amidst Sung Jae's horrified screams. Chimin was afraid he would go mad and bite John. He quickly pulled Sung Jae out, leaving him inside to snap off all the statues' heads. Sung Jae's soul was severely traumatized that day. Nothing remained but his screams echoing across the heavens and earth. The news in the city of Joseon, how could it ignore? The incident of the Aries apostle being stripped naked on the street by a suspicious person. Hugo heard about it and immediately recognized Jeon's perverse style. He sighed heavily, confused. He had just returned to Korea and had to hear this news. It was a headache. He was already annoyed when someone came to ask, "Do you want anything to drink?" Hugo angrily snarled, warning immediately, "Stop talking nonsense and get lost, Yang Wei." The waitress chuckled, her eyes changing unnaturally, her voice shifting to a man's brazenly greeting, "Hugo, long time no see." Yang Wei still maintained the appearance of the waitress. He intimately put his arm around Hugo's neck, trying to extract information from him, but only made him even angrier. From the beginning, he had a good reason not to like this fat guy, and now he was groping around. It was disgusting. Seeing Hugo unhappy made him furious. Yang Wei immediately exited the employee's mind, making her panic and confused why she was standing so close to a male customer like this. Hugo was furious with Yang Wei's cowardly trick, but he could not punch anyone, so he could only swallow it, determined to find John before other dogs sniffed him out. But where to find him when only the remnants of perverse antics in Bucheon remained? In the commercial district, Sung Jae's soul had accepted the truth and returned to his body, now shopping at the supermarket with Chimin. Outside, he stubbornly said, "Leon is a hero of all humanity. What part of that guy at home is similar? He probably does not believe it either." But Chimin's eyes saw that person come out of the demon tower. That was the most convincing detail. Sung Jae did not believe it that year. His father, the Sagittarius saint, had told him that Jeon died in the demon tower. Robbery, robbery. The two of them were still stunned, not understanding anything. A white light flashed, blowing everything on the street away. The robber, wearing a mask exactly like blue underwear, clutching a few banknotes, ran like the wind. At this speed, it could only be a cancer apostle, using his power to steal. It crashed into everything in the supermarket, grabbing items and money so fast that it was invisible to the naked eye. Secretly happy in his mind, those saints could not even keep a single thing. It was about to escape to the next location to loot, when someone's arm gently held it back. "Got you, little one." However, this catch landed directly in the robber's stomach, making him tremble and lie on the ground in pain until Chimin recognized that the one who caught him was Jeon. Suddenly, from behind the checkout counter, someone's voice praised Jeon's impressive method. "It is not easy to catch a cancer apostle normally, but from what I see, you are just a normal apostle next time. You should not catch them with your hands. Calling the police is better." John looked at the white-haired man in front of him, confused. What is this idiot mumbling about? The conversation had not even begun when it was interrupted by a perplexing clunking sound throughout the entire supermarket from top to bottom. The sound grew louder and louder, as if it was both underground and on the ceiling. and then everything inexplicably shook. The cancer apostle thief lying on the ground assumed there was an earthquake. Now's the time, taking advantage of this opportunity. He dashed away at the speed he was proud of. Almost got served by some random guy. Now your daddy's gonna play a non-stop mix and dance his ass off dancing too happily, so someone got greedy. It dug through the ground and emerged right in front of the robber. Then it writhed its huge, many-legged body, saying, "Brother, let me dance too. I even have Vina house music here." The appearance of a disaster beast in the green zone was enough to make the robber's face drained of all color. Now, it even wanted to dance with him. What the hell? The robber slowly retreated. He wanted to avoid dancing with the monster, but also did not want to slow down and get caught by the police. It jumped high, wanting to avoid this centipede. Confident in its speed, even if it had 100 legs, it would not catch up. Unexpectedly, the centipede did not bother to chase, but a mouth larger than a well full of fangs opened right in the robber's path. The fangs closed decisively. The spider-chicken hybrid devoured it right in front of 100 people in the supermarket. The Spider Queen, covered in scales, waited for the lower part of her body to finish its appetizer. She then glanced at the people below with glowing eyes as if choosing ingredients for her main course. Warning, warning. This is not a drill. The disaster beast Queen Spider has appeared in the supermarket. All residents are required to evacuate as quickly as possible. Before her intro was even finished, the spider demon chanted a spell, unleashing a pile of insects of all kinds, pouncing on the people within sight. "Which of you had the closest mukbang view but did not buy a ticket you can pay with your life? I will take it all." In an instant, the entire supermarket descended into chaos, people screaming and running for their lives. To add to the drama, the announcement speaker continuously blared, "This area has turned red. Damn it, everyone knows already, why do not you just play a remix to complete the set?" While countless people ran for their lives and still died, a middle school kid, utterly terrified by the unstable supermarket trip, stood sobbing, oblivious to the fanged spider's mouth rapidly approaching. And just like that, it was exactly the right scene for the male lead to save someone. John threw a punch at the spider's head, nearly making it bleed. He also reminded the kid, "If you are going to cry, stand back a bit." Afraid of the spider one? Afraid of the guy who just punched the spider 10. He extended his hand forward, making the boy so scared that his soul jumped back into his body. He quickly scurried away. He intended to play the role of a good guy, and all but unexpectedly, one glorious minute turned him into a country bumpkin. John had to switch targets to the demon beasts to fulfill his role as a hero, confused as to why they appeared in the green zone. Oh well, it does not matter why. It was also the perfect time for his snake to test its power. John enthusiastically looked at the centipedes, a smile spreading across his face as he began his midday exercise program. The sleek black car sped down the highway with priority. Inside, Yang Wei had just arrived in Korea when he received news of a disaster beast attacking the supermarket in Bucheon. Sweat poured down his head. He asked again what kind of monster it was. Surprisingly, it was the Spider Queen he had just encountered not long ago. Damn it, I am dead, guys. The last time Yang Wei with his big belly went to eliminate that disaster beast, he failed and could only seal it. Who would have thought it would escape, and now it is wrecking the supermarket in the green zone? The more Yang Wei thought about it, the angrier and more frustrated he got, because he had boasted so much, and now he had to kill the monster alone. But he could not do it alone. Areas on Earth are currently divided into 6 color-coded levels. Blue is for high-ranking individuals like saints or authorities. Green is a safe zone for humanity to live. Yellow is still habitable, but you have to live hidden because it is already an alarm level. Above that is orange, where danger lurks everywhere with a large number of monsters. In the red zone, if you linger, you will only be prey for high-level beasts. And in the black zone, there is nothing left to find, not even a thread. The Spider Queen appeared in the supermarket in the Bucheon area, officially changing that green zone to red. So the subordinate asked Yang Wei what he wanted to do with that supermarket. Tell them to bury that place. Yang Wei's hands tightened. He absolutely could not let the news leak that the Saints had lost a lot of resources just to eliminate the Spider Queen, but failed. Knowing full well he was acting recklessly, but having no ability other than giving orders, Yang Wei requested his subordinates to announce that the people there were dead and to send apostles to collapse the building. Inside that supermarket, unpleasant hissing and thumping sounds echoed, as hundreds of large centipedes rushed in the same direction, towards the bald silver-haired man who looked like he had just been taken out of a freezer, smoke billowing from his mouth. Sung-hoon slammed his hand onto the ground, causing a long, icy streak, and cursed, "Damn these disgusting insects." The ice prison of the man with the top knot successfully froze about a dozen of them at once. But it also made him sweat for an S-rank like Sung-hoon. One move that could freeze a whole group was already very successful. But before he could celebrate for 10 seconds, the ice began to crackle. The disgusting centipede rushed in for revenge. Although Sung-hoon had just created the ice, his head was now drenched in sweat. He had no strength left to resist. Suddenly, Jeon appeared right in front of him with a pile of soda cans in his hand, saying calmly, "Little snowflake, I am here." He looked around for a while, still not realizing where Jeon had appeared from, but since this stage was in his hands, he had to perform. He tossed a Coca-Cola can, but it was torn to hide the label. Jeon asked, "Want some water to cool down, kids?" His hand holding the can emitted incredible power. Then all the cans were thrown at once. Everyone immediately got a can to drink as much as they wanted. Do not fight over them. Okay? The centipede standing behind without a share was about to shriek, demanding its can. A can of water immediately came from right to left, blocking the shriek right in its throat. Damn it, he is giving out water, but his fangs are disgusting. Jeon flashed past, giving each one a quick flick, closing their mouths to prevent them from fighting. The more he fought, the more excited he became. His eyes narrowed, turning on flight mode. He circled once his blade already covered in blood, making Sungjae's mouth gape wide enough to fit a whole steamed bun. "Hello, little brother." The system popped up, reporting successful disaster elimination experience points increased, and obtained components. What components? Tell me more. The system summoned something that looked like a colorful stone in Jeon's hand, telling him he could create new skills and holy relics with these components. He clutched the glowing item in his hand, planning to examine it later when he had free time. Currently, his body movements still met his requirements. Jeon was in an extremely comfortable state. He did not pay attention to the little snowflake behind him, staring wide-eyed at his performance. What is more, he even comfortably returned the knife to Sungjae, saying he carried it from home. "Now, I am returning it. Oh, great brother, now that you have returned the knife, who would dare to cut with it again?" Jeon's nonchalant expression made the man with the top knot think hard. It looked familiar. Finally, as if remembering something, he screamed, making Jeon turn around and take a direct finger to the face. "Are you the one who attacked our 2 apostles? Damn it, that fat guy criticized me, and that ugly woman once was not enough." Jeon was taken aback. He did not know why, but he lunged and punched the man with the top knot, dislocating his jaw. His mouth uttered a villainous sentence. "You know too much, how could you find me? If you do not want people to know, do not do it." He was talking normally, then suddenly lunged and punched someone. What a bastard. "The clothes you are wearing, you stole from someone else. And you are even carrying an S-rank apostle's badge, flaunting it everywhere, asking why people do not know." Jeon was pointed at and accused of stealing, but he felt no shame. He reached out and tore off the badge. He even wondered what kind of junk this was. It looked so country bumpkin, and I am carrying it everywhere. He completely ignored the little snowflake, making him furious. He wanted to grab his hair so badly. Jeon crushed this cheap market item right in front of the Ares apostle, mumbling to himself that witch tricked these people into buying these things for 20 cents in the junk market. "Hey, what about me? I am still in this conversation. Don't interrupt." Jeon, who was happy, suddenly became angry because that foul-mouthed thing interrupted him, recognizing him even before he did. Jimin trembled, pointing and gesturing his feet, nervously stepping back, because that was the Spider Queen, who was herding chickens from the other end of the supermarket, had now reached this spot. The man with the top knot did not argue with Jeon anymore. He just stood there barking nonsense, or he would end up in the underworld arguing. Luckily, he was standing next to Jeon. His body surged with a cool, minty energy accompanied by a warp. He shot straight forward, yelling out, "Hey, you bitch spider!" He shot straight up to where the Spider Queen stood, getting ready to do a furious Kamehameha. Take daddy's punch and get lost. Damn it, he told me to get lost, but he stomped straight down, making the floor and tiles sink. The crowd that was running frantically suddenly stopped running, their eyes wide open, looking towards the foul-mouthed creature that had just chased them. Jimin and Sungjae had seen Jeon in action many times, but they were still not used to it. Not to mention the little snowflake whose mind only contained 3 letters, WTF. Who is this guy confronting the Spider Queen directly, without any holy relics? Moreover, he has a perverted grin on his face while he is bewildered. In his ear echoed the voice of a man calling all Ares apostles inside the supermarket. Out of the whole group, only Sungjae and the man with the top knot, Sung-hoon, heard him. because this was the voice of the Holy Guild commander Choi Sung-yuk transmitting a message to the Ares apostles. He was nearby ordering both of them to get their butts out of the supermarket immediately. The Ares apostles would soon bury this entire building. Outside the supermarket, a red protective barrier about 10 meters in radius had appeared. They probably noticed the unusual atmosphere too. Choi Sung-yuk, unlike an apostle, directly stated this was Yang Wei's directive, so they could not disobey him. He wanted the Ares apostles to conceal the truth that he could not control the Spider Queen. Min Sung-hoon, you have teleportation abilities, quickly take Sung-jae outside. The man with the top knot lost his composure and asked again, does the commander only want the two of them to escape? Because in his horrified eyes, many people had been lucky to escape that massacre, yet he was saying to leave them to die here. Below the crack, countless centipedes were still emerging, and that perverse young man was still lunging back and forth fighting the queen spider. That truth made Sung-hoon struggle intensely mentally, choosing to do the right thing. But Commander Sung-yuk did not give him much time, urging him, is there a problem? Choosing between living alone and dying in a group, Sung-hoon quickly made his choice. Of course, he did not object to his superior's command. Meanwhile, Sung-jae furiously yelled, do you know the situation here to give such an order? And that Sung-hoon guy? How dare he open his mouth and say that the people here will be buried with it? What does that matter compared to my own life? Sung-hoon's head spun continuously, coming up with all sorts of convincing reasons about what people would think of us Ares apostles. Sung-jae's eyes widened in surprise. What time is it to be talking about what others think? That is right. Sung-hoon had thought it through. If the news about the Spider Queen leaked out, the power and faith in the supreme gods would surely decrease, affecting the gods' protection. Ignoring Sung-jae's annoyance, Sung-hoon told him to come quickly. Only 2 people could be taken with the last teleportation. But Cheeman is still here. How can I tell him to go? Not to mention, there are many other people who need help. The more he spoke, Sung-hoon became more impatient. What is there to question about those who stay being buried with the building? Why keep asking? If so, he would not hesitate to leave Sung-jae here to die with these nobodies. Looking at Sung-hoon's arm covered in ice, it was clear he was not joking. There were many reasons to obey the order, and if Sung-jae was so attached to the people here, just kill them to ease their pain, right? Sung-hoon's cruelty infuriated Sung-jae. He roared, summoning the Highland Holy Fire to engulf himself, only to be met with Sung-hoon's delighted laughter. I am completely on a different level from you, so be sure to think it through. Before he could finish his advice to the apostle, Sung-hoon was hit by something from behind, falling face first onto the ground. It was the gigantic body of a centipede, pinning him to the tiled floor. John's Gucci-shoed foot appeared immediately, asking what are these kids still doing here? The knife he carried from Sung-jae's house must be a genuine high-quality item from a sushi restaurant. It had been slashing and dicing all this time without chipping. Now he just wanted to herd these bratty kids outside. Sung-jae told him the door was blocked, so they were stuck here. To get out, they could only use Sung-hoon's instant teleportation, which was currently face down on the ground. Or think more boldly, which was to eliminate all these damn beasts here and then find another unblocked path to escape. There are many injured people here who cannot even walk. How can we all escape together? Time is limited. The Ares apostles are sealing this place to bury everyone talking about it, made it seem so hazy that even Jian had to curse a few times. Behind him, Sung-hoon struggled to his feet from the rubble. Then he exerted his power, blowing away the things that had just crushed him to the noisy floor. You want to abandon this place and leave everyone behind talking for a long time, not killing anyone and still getting beaten up? Sung-hoon stared at his phone, gritting his teeth, saying he would leave this place by himself. Perhaps the spider had a special affection for Sung-hoon, because as soon as he said that, it sprayed a web of silk harder than superglue, tying Sung-hoon down to stay with it. He widened his eyes. He never expected to receive the spider's affection when he wanted to leave the most. It sucked Sung-hoon into its mouth, keeping him as its own for sure to avoid noisy arguments. The phone used for instant teleportation clattered to the ground as if calling them back to reality. The Spider Queen was still in the supermarket. John opened his mouth, saying the first polite sentence of the day, asking the 2 young men to take care of the injured. He would take care of these disgusting things. Probably fearing his younger brothers would not believe him, John emitted a faint holy light all over his body, reiterating, I will deal with this quickly. At that time, outside the Ares, apostles were trying to reconnect the roof of the barrier outside the supermarket. Yang Wei had just arrived and saw that the job was not done, asking why the progress was so slow, making his subordinates sweat profusely. Because they had been working diligently, not daring to browse TikTok, but this ceiling layer felt so strange, boss. Clearly something was obstructing it. As soon as he finished speaking, a blinding blue-white light shot out from inside the supermarket, making the Ares apostles quickly dodge to avoid going blind. The image of a gigantic half-blue, half-white snake coiling shot out from the supermarket roof, emitting a terrifying energy that knocked the people to the ground. Yang Wei could not believe his eyes. It was a snake. Then just a second later, everyone in the supermarket streamed out, screaming and yelling, rushing to hug the bodyguards outside. They panicked, pulling and dragging, telling the situation inside that someone was killing the spider monsters and they wanted to be released. But for now, no one had managed to get out. Yang Wei's face turned ashen hearing those words. No way, a spider queen he could not defeat. Yet someone else, he had to go check for himself to be sure. Yang Wei told his subordinates to clear a path for him, but they kept blocking him. Tired of it, Yang Wei flung his body over the top, towards a broken glass walkway. As soon as he landed inside, John appeared out of nowhere smiling. "Hello, long time no see. Are you not happy, or why are you so startled?" Yang Wei almost shat his pants. "Can we greet each other less abruptly? He is 40 years old, you know." Middle-aged men often panic a lot thanks to Yang Wei's quick reaction. The area outside was then alerted with emergency calls. Rescue teams quickly arrived at the scene, taking the injured for treatment. Among them were Sung Jae and Chimin, wrapped in blankets, sitting silently in a corner. Sung Jae was not physically injured, but primarily suffered from psychological trauma. He kept thinking, was that guy Jian? His appearance was completely different, but his movements were extremely similar. Sung Jae suddenly heard a familiar voice. It was from his father Hugo, who had rushed over, asking why he was still here. Sung Jae saw his father and immediately turned away, feigning annoyance like a rebellious teenager, while Chimin's mouth gaped, almost wanting to rush over for the saint's autograph. Coming and going, like an immortal riding clouds returning to Korea. Sung Jae did not even know when he came back, and now his son ignored him, not answering anything. Hugo was thinking of a way to talk to his son. A moment later, he took a breath and asked about his health first. Then he got to the main point, asking about the person who eliminated the monsters inside the supermarket. But Sung Jae still did not answer. Hugo had punched countless disaster beasts, but he had not yet punched this son of his. Chimin probably knew that Uncle Sagittarius had a temper hotter than ice cream, so he opened his mouth and asked, "Sung Jae, is Brother John probably okay?" Hearing that sensitive name, Chimin was immediately grabbed. Hugo no longer maintained his image and irritably asked, "You just said Brother John. Where is he? Where is he?" Chimin's brain disconnected from the server for a few seconds. Then his John said he was Brother John, who lived off others, not a saint, like Uncle Hugo said, but if he was the one holding Uncle's knife, he was in the supermarket eliminating the Spider Queen. The matter was simple, but hearing it from Chimin's mouth made him feel a little confused. Hugo grabbed the boy's shoulder and asked again to be sure, "Are you two one or two?" Suddenly, the upper floor of the supermarket exploded with a violent bang. The walls turned to dust, bringing with it a lot of smoke. From the rubble came the panting sound of a man running. It was Yang Wei, now regretting all the meat he had consumed without exercising. No matter how much he ran, John was still in front of him, cackling. "It has been 20 years since we last met. Why are you so flustered? My friend Ares." At this point, Yang Wei still could not figure out who the hell the person in front of him was. He still had to open his mouth and ask, "Who are you?" The feeling the person in front of him gave Yang Wei was extremely similar to Jeon, but that person's face was covered in scars, his head was heavily bald, he had not had hair implants, not to mention his voice was completely different. And most importantly, there was no way Jeon could be this young Yang Wei was certain that the person in front of him was an older Jeon trying to scare him, so he started cursing first. John was suddenly cursed at, and did not know why he mumbled, asking, "I am that guy. Why are you calling me a fraud?" Yang Wei stuck to the idea that some lunatic was impersonating John and gathered his strength, intending to punch him. Unexpectedly, John lunged forward, punching him in the stomach, wanting to squeeze all the fat out, sending the Ares saint flying downwards. He even pursued him relentlessly. From mid-air, he punched him again, sending his overweight body crashing onto the ground below. Then calmly landed next to him. John's lips still held a smile as he asked, "My dear friend, have you been eating too much lately that you forgot you need a beating to listen to others? Did your life bloom more joyfully after you eliminated me in the demon tower? Each step towards Yang Wei was a reminder that the saints had devoured all his assets. Even his will was torn apart. But it is okay. My dear friend, I am here today to kill you all. So money does not matter. He clenched his fists, hearing them crackling, then whispered his plan. After beating Yang Wei, he would go after his family friends, the Holy Guild, and then those scumbags, everyone would get their share. The image of the entire Ares church collapsing at John's threat infuriated Yang Wei to some extent. He would not let him do such things so easily. Yang Wei endured the pain and stared intently at the person in front of him. For now he knew he was not just fooling around but acting too fast. He had not been able to catch up with his moves. So the person in front of him was truly Lon, who had resurrected and emerged from that demon tower with a completely different appearance. Suddenly Yang Wei stood up, his expensive coat fluttering as he bowed his head, repeating, "If you are Jean, then you must prove to me that you are telling the truth." Yang Wei's entire body flew high, accompanied by new energy causing violent air currents. He opened up many spaces behind him, his eyes blazing with fire, wanting to resolve all doubts. With force, the surrounding space swirled and was enveloped in red light. Below Yang Wei's feet, a formation in the shape of an Ares head appeared. Very quickly, he had summoned the transformation spell. An ancient-style hat appeared on his head, mimicking the Ares supreme god Bide. The first saint of this zodiac had 7 different kinds of swords flying around him. Damn it, I remember that feeling. It is real. But that single ornate hat on his head showed that this fat guy had only summoned a fraction of his power. Not all of it. Yang Wei did not reply. He simply pointed his index finger forward. Chains immediately appeared on the ground beneath John's feet, coiling tightly around him, pinning him down. His chubby face broke into a superior smile as he asked, "Jean, do you still think your daddy is weak now?" From the sky, hundreds of thousands of swords appeared, sharp and of all types, converging like a flock of fish. They surged forth, forming the supreme god Ares Bide's secret technique to punish dissenters. 7 gigantic beams of swords from Yang Wei extended, roaring towards John, blowing away all the dirt, rocks, and air in their path. His 2 eyes narrowed, truly like those who underestimate their foes, scoffing at flashy and expensive effects. "Shut your mouth, you dog!" Yang Wei unleashed his skill, but did not forget to curse at Jian to relieve his frustration. This many swords embedded will turn him into a tattered human-shaped teddy bear. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of dirt and rocks being impaled by hundreds of thousands of swords exploded with a terrifying sound. When the smoke dissipated and the light from the supermarket's broken ceiling shone down, a vast pile of swords layered on top of each other created an incredibly majestic sight. Yang Wei did not know if John was dead or not. First, he had to catch his breath, being so fat fighting a long battle. This guy was exhausted. He needed to go home and eat 2 buckets of fried chicken to regain his strength. After a moment of no movement, Yang Wei landed, enjoying the feeling of victory. Finally, the foolish one died facing someone with vast experience. This mountain of swords had buried Jian as easily as Pi had 20 years past, and this guy still thought he was the 13th saint. Yang Wei was laughing with joy. Suddenly, from the bottom of the pile of swords, a familiar blue light emanated, as if not wanting him to wait long. No way. Yang Wei's eyes seemed to go blank. He could only stand there, watching the blue-white power inside hurl all the swords he had embedded into the ground. John, covered in blood, burst out of the pile of swords, but still had enough strength to punch Yang Wei's chubby face. No pain, no money. His tattered clothes fluttered in the wind, knocking the fat guy into the wall behind, punching away his arrogance. Yang Wei's lips trembled, covering his half-broken teeth, both scared and bewildered, unable to understand how he could have survived that blow. Was this truly John, not a fake? Hehe, so you recognize me? Huh, you are not used to seeing me without scars right now. I am full of scars. My friend looked closely. John's eyes flashed with excited blue light as he kicked Yang Wei in the chest. Your daddy is back and stronger than ever, my son. Suddenly Jaeon stood up straight, covering his nose with his hand, complaining, "These damn swords must have been dug up from some dump. They smell horrible." Yang Wei did not reply, his eyes fixed on Jaeon's firm body, ignoring the blood dripping from his nose. It was not that this fat guy was gay or anything, but his recovery speed was too incredible. Even an Aquarius healer could not do that. But Yang Wei had no idea it was not his wounds recovering, but the system that had revived Jeon from the dead, granting him the 13th sense skill. And then the conversation was over. Now it is time for business. He stepped on Yang Wei, saying, "Now how can I make my dear friend remember me forever?" A supreme god should only manifest when a saint transforms, but thanks to the system. John saw Bide scolding Yang Wei for letting him live, until now. How could he have known he could only stay silent, unable to answer the supreme god? In an instant, Bide vanished, leaving a curse on Yang Wei. He shrieked, "Why did the supreme god disappear?" Jian pretended to know nothing, laughing. Perhaps he knew these things were useless and gave up. Even the supreme god fled. Now Lan would be very pleased to show Yang Wei what true joy buried in the demon tower was. But he was also easygoing. He would simply share what he received back then with Yang Wei, just for fun. A moment later, his subordinates and Hugo managed to get inside. They only saw a messy pile of rubble, as if a titan had just crashed down here. In the corner where the supermarket once stood, corpses of disaster beasts lay exposed. Clearly the aftermath of a fierce battle. Hugo stood in silence for a moment. Suddenly he realized this lingering energy felt very familiar to him. Was it Yang Wei? He was lying beneath their feet, emitting an energy that showed he had been severely beaten. It seemed a bit difficult to remove those sticky things. Taesu gritted his teeth, trying to come up with a solution to save the civilians without killing them and free them from the monster's manipulation. Their footsteps grew closer with each passing moment. Taesu saw his friend confidently turn and smile, saying, "We have to put an end to this. Say it quickly. Who would understand such ambiguity?" John lost patience, advancing while covering his mouth and yawning. "Let's finish it and go to sleep." Taesu rushed to stop him. This guy is going in the wrong direction. Because Jaeon had entered the range of a lifeless zombie, he frustratingly reached out and grabbed the head of the manipulated person. The apostles immediately retreated, allowing Hugo to punch through the ground. This place was already ruined, and now it was even worse. Hugo plunged down into the hole he had just created. As soon as he landed, he immediately adjusted his clothes. He did not know if he was looking for a dying Yang Wei or if he was meeting an old friend after 20 years. But Hugo saw no one. He only saw something very much like Joan. He had found a piece of paper with 4 words, "cheap asshole," stuck on Yang Wei's chest, who lay like a dog poisoned, then disappeared somewhere. He was going to fulfill his promise to Yang Wei right. After beating him, he would go to his family friends and the Holy Guild. And the holy relic Yang Wei stole from him must be inside, not anywhere else. Outside there was a flashy Aries emblem. Inside there were many people taking pictures and visiting the exhibits. There was also an ugly statue of Yang Wei placed right in the center of the hall. Truly a rich guy with too much money and delusions of grandeur. Just looking at it made him constipated. He also often glared at people for them to admire. John walked around for a while, feeling his holy relic calling from a pathway. But when he arrived, he only saw some clothes he used to wear and weapons that were clearly photoshopped. But they dared to put them in a display case for people to admire. Truly the clown king of the zodiac. Finally, he found what he had been looking for. A long, thin object placed on a velvet cloth with an information plaque in front of it, John's used toothpick. He could not believe that among so many items he found something with his enzymes here. How could he not be happy? The people visiting the Aries mansion suddenly heard the loud crashing sound of a large glass panel falling. Alarms blared continuously from the ceiling, reporting a thief had arrived. Surround him. In the hallway, apostles ran frantically, each looking extremely tense. All because of a guy in a dragon robe who stole a toothpick. High-intensity lights shone on him. Hundreds of bodyguards rushed forward, forming a circle looking like an audience at a concert, bringing the artist up holding his prop. Humph! With a soft grunt, "I am not putting it down, so what?" His 2 fingers held the toothpick, flicking it up and down gently. But with each flick of his hand, those people screamed as if something had just cut through them. All 100 people there were soon blown away by John's power, leaving him alone to happily walk down the hallway and outside. It is true that using something familiar is always the best. He still did not stop. He kept flicking it back and forth. His enjoyment only made the screams behind him more desperate. The toothpick in his hand had at some point transformed into something half bun-shaped, half peach-shaped. Smiling happily at him, he had just found his relic. The system reported it belonged to the production system with the characteristic of transformation. From this, it unlocked the creative workshop skill for Jian, a workshop 1.5 meters wide. From now on, John had the skill to produce, repair, and disassemble any creations he wanted. This slime relic grew large and slithered onto his cheek, affectionately cuddling him just like a dog meeting its owner. After a long time, he was about to go out. John's eyes fixed on a door with an Aries symbol emitting a strong golden light. Suddenly, he got a mischievous idea. Since I am here, why not steal something? It would be a waste not to. He was going to be accused of stealing anyway. Why not take something? It would be a waste for them to laugh at him for coming all this way just for one thing. Until Hugo arrived panting. The mansion was burnt down, black smoke billowing into the air. People who had come for a relaxing day were now running for their lives. Unlucky ones might linger and become burnt victims. Their families would have to embalm them. Chasing like a dog, but still could not catch up to his perverted friend, who did all sorts of strange things. Hugo cried silent tears. Now he just hoped to find Jeon. The people were running chaotic. John walked alone through a side door, carrying a huge bag of loot, dragging on the ground, and complaining he was starving. Finally, Hugo found him. He yelled out, but John was not at all surprised to see him. He even politely asked, "Oh, Takesu, hello, friend. It has been 20 years, friend. It was not just yesterday, so come here and say hello to me." "That is fine." John stood still, waiting for Hugo's hug. Unexpectedly, he rushed headlong towards some bewildered guy behind him, who was grabbed by Hugo and shaken until his brain almost fell out. In his ear, he heard nagging mixed with questions. No one understood what was happening after this incident. The guy probably needed a haircut. His hair was a bit too long past his shoulders. He was mistaken for the male lead, which annoyed John a lot. He threw a kick straight at Hugo's face to remind him what his friend looked like. If you have lazy eyes, that's fine, but why ask if that guy with long hair is okay? Luckily, that long-haired brother was not implicated, and now he's still marveling at how John's kick hit his face perfectly. It was amazing. Seeing the family strife, the young man limped away, leaving Jeon looking at his friend rolling on the ground, still bitterly cursing. Is that what friends are like? A squashed bug, so much trouble he made. Hugo was so shaken by the kick that he had not heard Joan's curses. His eyes just stared at the lime on his shoulder, realizing it was his friend Joan's holy fate. And the crossed eyes from his shoulder upward met John's face full of bulging veins as he gritted his teeth and asked, "Do you need a few more punches to clear your head?" "Taeksu." Brother John, he rushed forward and hugged the person in front of him, finally realizing his friend was not the weirdo from earlier. Tears and snot flowed down a touching reunion scene of two friends for 20 years. It was very dramatic. Then Hugo took a punch to the stomach from his friend. Damn it, 20 years without leaving the demon tower, and I am still straight. What kind of hugging is this in broad daylight? This punch was too high quality. It was definitely. John Hugo did not dare to argue. He was about to start cursing again. The system suddenly popped up in front of him, announcing that Apollon, the Sagittarius Supreme God, had appeared. What the hell, Sagittarius Supreme God? Why did he appear to him instead of Hugo? Suddenly, a blinding golden light almost burst their eyes. Apollon abruptly appeared grandly behind Hugo, and then he closed his eyes slowly, and opened them just like Sailor Moon transforming. Both Hugo and Jeon were stunned, staring at the Supreme God in front of them. Although he was very handsome with flashy effects and filters, who could tell these two gods? What Apollon was doing here? As soon as Apollon appeared, he frowned. Looking at the two below with obvious suspicion without saying a word, Hugo looked visibly confused. Why did his Supreme God show up at this moment? And also staring at his friend Jeon, who had just returned from the dead with that expression. Only the system knew before the Sagittarius Supreme God spoke that Apollo had many doubts about his survival. Full of confusion, Apollo whispered privately to Hugo, asking him to check if this was the real Jeon or a Chinese knockoff. Damn it! The Supreme God wanted to test him by putting an arrow in his ass to see what would happen. John had been annoyed all this time, but had not said anything yet. Sagittarius Supreme God, not Cupid, the god of love, to just pull out a bow and arrow and aim at other people's butts. Hugo stood in the middle, trying to endure his anger, so John decided to target his friend instead. Remember what he said on the phone? "I am coming to kill you. Good luck now is the time for John to uphold his word." As soon as he left the tower, he heard that his house had been sold, his will tampered with, and all his ancient artifacts had disappeared. Of course, he was angry. Both were saints, but now his friend looked so strange. John looked extremely sinister. He was determined to give his friend a powerful punch to satisfy himself, then continued. A thump echoed, sounding like a heavy object falling to the ground, not just a light punch. Hugo's head was swollen from the punch, but he still smiled, thanking God for bringing his hot-headed friend back to him. If he did not hit me, it would not be him. He had not even dealt with Apollon yet. From inside the Ares mansion, countless people rushed out, pointing at John, ganging up to catch the artifact thief. How could a saint just break into someone's house and steal things without permission? Hugo asked him what he had stolen that made so many people come. He pointed to the sack like Santa Claus's bag, saying he only took this much. What do you mean this much? Half of Yang Wei's belongings are in here already. John put his hands on his hips, proudly asking his friend, "Do you think I am amazing?" Hugo had hated that fat guy for a long time, now seeing John looting the Ares house. He was overjoyed. There was no need to pretend that stealing was bad anymore. The Ares mansion guards were about to charge, but the captain raised his hand to stop them. That guy is not an amateur like us. I have invited someone more capable to deal with him. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong wind suddenly picked up, making Hugo jump and look around to see what was happening. A shadow jumped down from the roof of the Ares mansion. It was the person the security team had invited. A giant foot slammed down onto the stone floor below. It was the Ares guardian deity representing prosperity here to break John's neck. The huge creature, half lion, half ram, roared, spitting out saliva as a greeting. Its shadow covered the two below. Hugo immediately saw that a fierce fight was about to break out. He advised Jian to throw away all the things he had gotten from Yang Wei. They could deal with it later, when there was an opportunity. But he was not panicked, like his friend. He even smiled confidently, reiterating that he was a man who lived with a plan. I am not some idiot who just barges into other people's houses to rob when he cannot win. He throws away his loot and runs right. Slime, give me a sword. His artifact laughed with delight. It knew its master's rude personality too well. The two eyes of the celestial peach glowed brightly. Hundreds of weapon images flashed past like a lottery wheel until the necessary item was chosen. Its entire body emitted a lovely pinkish light. Its mischievous mouth curved, spitting out a sword hilt for Joel. He reached out and snatched it, pulling it out immediately. A cunning smile spread across his face. He swung his hand to reveal the sword in his palm. Unexpectedly, despite the swift motion, the sword looked like nothing more than a fruit knife. Jeon felt this size was not enough. He gripped it horizontally, mumbling, "Show me your true power." His entire body emitted the familiar blue light of the Ophiuchus. The air moved violently, as if gathering towards Jeon, making Hugo standing nearby confused. Isn't this energy too familiar? Suddenly from nowhere, a loud bang resounded on the tiled floor. It was Jeon appearing with the sword completely transformed, looking incredibly powerful and distinct. The blue aura emanating from it showed that this ancient sword had absorbed energy from the Ophiuchus constellation. He gained critical bug elemental points. For added prestige, a snake coiling around the hilt appeared, and the dark black blade had a spiky appearance, as if lightning coursed within it. Furthermore, before the battle, the system reminded John. The 13th sense skill allowed him to see the enemy's fatal weak points. They were laid out clearly, and not using them would just be foolish. John activated the skill, seeing everything clearly. The weak points of the Ares guardian deity were at the joints of its front and hind limbs. Such obvious weak points were too convenient. John grabbed his sword and lunged at the giant beast. Seeing this scene reminded Hugo of the old days. His friend did not know what fear of death was. He just charged straight in and fought head-on. Honestly, my friend, only Jian could fight in such a rough and reckless manner, and today Hugo was very pleased to witness it again. Boom! Pishu's front paw slammed down on John, who was flying past it like swatting a buzzing fly. Oh, my friend, you have not even struck a single blow, and it has already hit you like this. There is nothing left for me to lick. Hold on to your yelling too loud from under the guardian deity's feet. John's impatient voice suddenly rang out. He bent his arm, lifting the creature's front leg, cursing. Right. Ares, you eat until you are fat, making me almost suffocate. After the cursing comes the fighting. John's smile spread across his lips. He had not even made a move yet. The guardian deity experienced pain spreading throughout its entire body. The front leg that had just pinned John now bid farewell to its airborne joint. Instead, he was returning to his stance after unleashing his move. The Ares guardian deity roared a earth-shattering lament for its limb. The system popped up, reminding him Pishu was using another ability to retaliate. The creature roared as if calling for something. It turned out to be absorbing all prosperity around it to empower itself. Damn it. The guardian deity of prosperity absorbs all prosperity to itself when needed, and even creates noisy wind and dust, like that Jian does not like it at all. If you stayed still, he would have gone easy on you, so you chose death. He activated the high damage attribute of the Ophiuchus constellation on his sword, once more putting it on his shoulder. Before swinging down, he did not forget to affectionately whisper, "Let's make out." His Ophiuchus serpent slash cut down to the ground with a decisive line, but it was not a missed target instead. A long black line, exactly like a snake, shot forward from John's sword, lashing Pishu's body, making it shriek tragically. The entire surrounding area and the mansion behind it were also struck, like a wide area bombing. All the dirt rocks and buildings were scattered. The security guards who endured the attack were lightly bruised or heavily injured from being too close and getting hit. Dust and dirt filled the air. Hugo was too shocked to speak. He just stood there staring at his friend, exactly like a villain delighted after the destruction he created. As the smoke cleared, a clear blue canal dug by Jean was visible extending from where he stood, collapsing the entire Ares mansion behind it for hundreds of meters. Damn, that mystical blue energy possessed terrifying, destructive power. It reminded Hugo of Jeon's golden age when his hair had not fallen out and his eyes were not blind. Pishu. The Guardian lay in a heap like dried shit under the sun, logged out, without a chance to deny anything. Besides the experience points the system gave him, it also asked Jeon if he wanted to keep Pishu as his prosperous guardian deity. He approached Pishu's corpse, pondering, unable to believe that even though he bore the name of a saint, Jean had never been blessed by the supreme gods. He had never had the right to control a guardian deity like the 12 zodiac saints. Now suddenly being given that skill, only a fool would not accept it. His hand touched Pishu's fur. Its entire body was immediately enveloped by his power. Its drooping wings now spread wide. It successfully became the Ophiuchus guardian deity, with a cute form. Now it looked more like a shaggy grass dog with angelic wings than the fierce doorkeeper it was earlier. Moreover, it consciously shrunk its size for Jean to carry, looking like it had been assigned the task of guarding his belongings by its owner. A good pet. It is a prosperous guardian deity, so it can definitely store all his belongings. John was delighted, holding Pishu up, as if his mother had just given it to him. He completely ignored Hugo standing far away, looking utterly confused. What exactly happened before he returned that his friend possessed such terrifying power along with the ability to turn other people's guardian deities into his own? Suddenly, Jeon froze when the system requested a new name for Pishu, as it had now become his personal guardian deity. Piggy Bank. John was excited about the quality name he had just come up with, making Hugo try hard to suppress his laughter. A gangster piggy bank, no money, only weapons. Under the crimson sunset sky, Hugo's two-story house clearly heard the 3 words traitor that John bestowed upon his best friend. Hugo was furious and wanted to curse, but Jeon kept digging into his mouth continuously, recounting the crimes of his close friend who was struggling to survive in the tower while he was outside marrying, starting a family, and enjoying everything smoother than shampoo. Like how they had only met again after 20 years and he did not recognize him. Like how his friend lived a life worse than a dog in the demon tower. Like did his friend sleep well at night, making Hugo suppress his urge to run over and punch him? Still acting sulky and feigning indifference, John pretended, "Fine, I won't stay at my friend's house anymore." But when he heard Hugo say he lived alone, he changed his tone to comfort him. Even with a wife, living alone in this place must be lonely. Hugo stammered, "I haven't divorced yet." But that was a long story. He did not know how to tell it properly, so he steered the conversation back to Jean, asking what happened in the demon tower back then. "I listened to you and dealt with the disaster beasts outside, so I had no idea what was happening inside." He smirked. "If my friend is kind enough to ask, I will be kind enough to answer." Still maintaining a cheerful face with a hint of mockery, Jean glanced at Hugo and said simply, "That day I was stabbed in the back and pushed into a trap they had already set. Below that pit were hundreds of thousands of monsters eager to devour me, and then the red-eyed centipede revived again. It was insane, my friend." Knowing Hugo would be shocked and disbelieving, John continued, "The red-eyed centipede we saw was not its true form. Its true self was deep inside the tower." Jean witnessed the terrifying power of that damned monster with his own eyes when he fell into that pit. He skipped the beginning and middle parts, going straight to the near end, stating that he had managed to defeat the monster on his own. But the real problem was not the red-eyed centipede, but someone standing behind, controlling the tower, possessing the ability to revive dead disaster beasts, making them live and die repeatedly to torment Jian. The deeper he went, the narrower the path to escape seemed, but he continued like that until he killed the final boss. Then died a pathetic death from a kick to the head, which John was sure had logged him out of the server that time. When I woke up, there were no monsters around me, and I did not understand why I suddenly had an earthworm tattoo on my hand. He clenched his fist, trying to suppress the anger welling up in his chest, clinging to the truth that the one who stabbed him in the back that day knew the internal structure of the demon tower very well, which was why they kicked Jian down as if setting him up to be torn apart and die. And when I find out who it was, I will give their entire family and relatives a special massage. Hugo did not quite understand what he wanted to do, but he went along with it, and the first step of the plan was for Jean to create a spoon to force-feed evil people. He raised his hand, summoning a level 1 workshop, telling the system he wanted to craft a cool weapon. Glancing at the screen, he needed to know what usable materials he had. A sphere like an eye soaked in fish sauce for 10 years. This was the origin of the Spider Queen that Jian had punched in the supermarket. Beside it were stolen holy relics from the Ares mansion, along with fragments of disaster increasing the success rate of magic absorption. In short, John was not a good chef. He just thought of throwing everything into a pot, stirring it, and if it did not turn out delicious, it would at least be quality pig feed. He poured all his magical power into the toy horse. The system emitted a new light, making John's back hunch. Then it transformed into a red hare for him, called the Wanderer's Sacred Artifact, with properties purer than distilled water. By writing a name on the horse, the owner of that name would be able to absorb a maximum of 10% of the magic power from the person they touched. Besides its appearance and versatility, what John liked most was the horse statue's loyalty to its owner. Hugo must have thought it was too easy for him to forge a holy artifact. He pretended to ask questions like, "Why does it sound so surprisingly luxurious inside, but so dilapidated and wild outside?" Before the horse could retort, John already cursed for it. "Do you know how many precious materials I put into this, huh? I plan to have extra to make you another one, but if you're going to complain, then fine." Hitting Hugo right in his emotional core, he switched roles into the protagonist of an action movie, rapping, "Oh, my friend, amazing design. The creator is beyond words. I have given it my absolute reverence. Can you hear my heart?" John did not listen anymore. That would be dealt with later. Now he put his belongings into a spatial bag, preparing to find those scummy saints and teach them a lesson. He pulled out a flashy yellow box, saying, if the saints were hiding in their territory, the only way to lure them out was to make them reveal themselves. Hugo saw the Ares head on the outside of the box and shrieked in panic. Isn't that the storage holy relic? Besides its ability to store anything desired for a suitable price, users could also develop the items placed inside it. Hugo looked at it with mild envy. After all, this was a top 10 holy relic. But the important question was why Jian was carrying it when it belonged to Ares only. Ares saints could use it. Hearing that the Sagittarius saint was dirt poor, he said, "I brought it to you. It will definitely come in handy." Hugo bristled, saying he had money, then heard Jaeon continue. The higher the rank of a holy artifact, the more expensive and hard to find. The materials are, Jaeon wanted to use this to find many necessary materials and also make high-level saints self-destruct. But Hugo still did not understand how to use this safe if no one could activate it. He heard his friend ask a stupid question. Why can't you activate it? He wanted to jump up and grab his hair. I am a Sagittarius saint, my friend. I am not an Ares. It was then that John realized his stupidity. He exhaled wearily. It's useless, my friend. We have to find another way. You can't even open it, let alone put things in it. How will we do business? Putting the safe away was easy, but Jeon did something harder. He said, I've already sent the challenge letter. Hugo's face paled, asking, where did the challenge letter go? Seeing John's face, he knew his friend was up to his unusual tricks again. Surely by now the challenge letter has arrived where it should not have, right? Under the brilliant sunset sky, far from Hugo's house, the Blue House of Korea was holding an important meeting. It began with curses. Damn these useless people, they can't even eliminate one spider monster, and they bring shame upon themselves. The commander of the Leo Holy Guild. Oliver put his feet on the table, expressing contempt for the officials who could not even handle a small matter. Someone on the other side spoke up, telling him to mind his language, but he was immediately dismissed. Were the rumors true that some unknown person killed the Spider Queen? Or that Jaeon resurrected from the dead? The porcelain item on the meeting table exploded loudly, cutting off the argument. The commander of the Gemini Holy Guild, Choi Sung-yuk, smiled, but it was clear he was not happy. Stop talking about John for my sake, I am getting angry. What Oliver maintained his frivolous demeanor, asking again, haven't you seen that fat Yang Wei getting beaten like a poisoned dog in the video circulating online? Sung-yuk tried to steer Oliver's thoughts towards the idea that some random person was given items by a saint so they were not that strong. He immediately received a contemptuous remark from the man. If it's that easy, why don't you Gemini go eliminate that female spider yourself, huh? Hey, watch your mouth. I have proof that Aries and Gemini contributed to killing the Spider Queen, and there was even an S-rank apostle who sacrificed himself. Oliver refused to give up, unleashing a yellow power behind him, asking again, wasn't that S-rank guy already inside the Spider Queen's belly? Choi Sung-yuk said nothing more, silently suppressing his anger, but the purple aura flared up, conflicting with Oliver's yellow light, making the leaders sitting above sweat profusely. He hated these two guys, and also the state of the Blue House, which had turned from a political meeting place into a marketplace for two thugs to argue. Suddenly, an employee pushed the door open, inviting the president to watch the latest news. The anchor looked terrified, as if someone was holding a gun to his head, forcing him to speak. The broadcast station just received a mysterious package filled with photos of Yang Wei being tortured and a piece of paper with bright red ink. I'm back. What the handwriting on it was confirmed to be 99% consistent with the deceased. John Hugo roared. He pressed his friend lying on the bed. What were you thinking to announce to the whole world that you're back, huh? Killing Yang Wei was enough to shake the entire world. So publicly, aren't you afraid the whole world will come looking for you? Hugo couldn't understand why his friend chose such a bizarre way to get revenge. What are you talking about? John, hearing this, threw his head back to clarify Yang Wei isn't dead. He sat up abruptly, smiling, rummaged through his bag and said cryptically, he's not exactly alive, but he's not dead. What does this guy mean? If he's not alive, then he's dead. So how is it that he's not dead, but still alive? Yet not exactly alive. Here, here, this is Yang Wei. Friend in John's hand was a yellow teddy bear held by its two ears, though it couldn't speak. If you paid attention, you could hear Yang Wei's screams echoing from inside. You bastard, you son of a bitch. John on. Don't tell me this is Yang Wei. Hugo flinched slightly, wanting to quickly flee from the bizarre stuffed animal. As Jeon held its two ears, twisting it with delight, his current power had grown so strong that he could completely control other saints' souls. His hand twisted harder and harder. Knowing the teddy bear couldn't speak, he repeatedly ordered, introduce yourself. Slave. Number 2. Suddenly, he remembered something more important. John handed him an item saying, look at this. This is the knife that was stabbed in my back, pushing me into that trap, friend. Damn it. He was recounting a terrible experience of being killed, not filming a ghost story vlog, yet his face was so excited. Grasping the knife, Hugo seriously examined the carved patterns, which proved it was not an ordinary knife. But Hugo knew Yang Wei wouldn't dare stab John in the back. He didn't have the guts for that. He knew that, which is why he was torturing Yang Wei's soul like this. Even if Yang Wei didn't kill him, he probably knew who did. Carrying the teddy bear on his back, John said, now I'm going to the Divine Artifact shop for a bit, because that bald fat guy had said he'd seen the carving on the knife at the shop before. Incidentally, before leaving, he borrowed a few sets of clothes from his friend so he wouldn't be accused of being dirty. Of course, Hugo didn't object. He went upstairs to shop around. John put both hands in his pockets, waving goodbye to slave number 2, as if knowing his friend will wonder who slave number 1 was. He awkwardly waved his arm without turning back. I'll be home soon. Slave number 1. Then he left, ignoring Hugo's curses. It was already dark at the White Willow mansion, which John had thoroughly messed up. A group of dapper men in black suits appeared, all busy examining the extent of the destruction. Leading them was a woman making a call reporting that the White Willow Saint was not there. The person on the other end of the line chuckled playfully, swirling a stream of water in her hand. It was Sophie Marty. The Aquarius Saint asked her subordinate, where do you think that fat guy went? She reported that all of White Willow's assets had disappeared. This worried Sophie Marty, fearing that the bald man had escaped and allied with another saint, making things more troublesome. Just as she was frowning in thought, Her subordinate hesitantly voiced his suspicion. Could it be that John returned and took him? In the luxurious, steam-filled bathroom, Sophia's boisterous laughter rang out. After laughing enough, she mumbled, "That's not a fun joke, you know." With a flick of her hand, the water in the bathroom swirled. It grabbed the head of a nearby maid, lifting her high and swirling her continuously as if trying to drown her. A gurgling sound came from the phone. The black-clad subordinate knew his slip of the tongue had caused serious consequences. He immediately apologized. Only then was the maid released, just as another subordinate rushed in with bad news. Another saint had registered to participate in the drachma auction. That night in many distant cities there was also an endless commotion at the Lion Gym. The gym-goers all looked in the same direction, admiring the man lifting tons of weights against the wall. A subordinate quietly approached, whispering, "There's a rumor that Jaeon's divine artifact will appear at the upcoming drachma auction." The man glared behind him, highlighting the long, fierce scar on his cheek. Then he dropped the barbell with a thud as if the news had angered him. But a smile appeared on his lips. Stephen Marker turned his shaggy brown hair back excitedly. "Finally, that thing has appeared. It must belong to us." A dazzling blue light shot out from a teleportation gate, gradually revealing two figures, one tall, one short. Today, John wasn't wearing the sandals he picked up in the bathroom anymore, perhaps because he had stolen these shoes from Hugo's house. Beside him was Sung-jae, his friend's son, who took him to various places using the free teleportation service exclusively for Gemini apostles. Both strode through the bustling streets. John thanked Sung-jae for enthusiastically taking him to meet an SS rank appraiser as soon as he needed one. On the surface, the boy smiled genuinely, but inside he just wanted to scream because Sung-hyuk had specifically asked him to gather more information about the person who defeated the Spider Queen, not because he was genuinely interested. Sung-jae's phone was full of reminder messages from the commander of the Gemini Saint sect. Though he didn't say it, John knew his nephew was being pressured. He extended his hand, offering a knife already sheathed in a simple leather case. He said it was what he used to fight the teeming hordes in the Demon Tower. It was an A-rank knife that allowed him to summon warriors and activate random skills, but under Sung-jae's eyes, it was just an old rusty thing. If someone gave it to him, he should just accept it. Just as he finished speaking, Jean had already realized they had arrived in front of an ancient-looking building. The residence of the SS rank appraiser. Pedestrians strolling on the street suddenly buzzed with excitement, pointing at someone who had just appeared, making the entire street stir. It was the Aquarius Saintess, suddenly appearing in her characteristic zodiac costume. Leading a group of all-female subordinates, she walked confidently down the street in the eyes of all the citizens. Saintess Sophia was the kind of person who represented all the best things in the world, like a fallen angel, someone who after meeting her gaze would forget their way home. But one subordinate of the appraiser's house was still lucid. He rushed out, flustered, begging the Saintess to stop. The appraiser already has an appointment with someone else. On the surface, Sophia played the role of a kind, understanding saintess, but inwardly she cursed the appraiser for being inconsiderate and making her wait. Who could possibly have an appointment before me at this hour? Who is inside? The person inside curiously looked at all the items displayed on the appraiser's shelves. He marveled. The prices of these things are indeed sky-high, truly worthy of SS rank items. He intently looked at the divine artifact Sung-jae brought and asked who made it. Jin, an SSS rank appraiser for many years, considered one of the most experienced in his profession, broke into a sweat as he stated his assessment. This thing is very likely related to Sir Jeon. Sung-jae didn't want to panic the old man. He pointed to Jeon and said, "He made it, but he's just a fan of the 13th saint. Sung-jae, please go outside. I have something important to discuss with this person." As soon as he turned to leave, the appraiser immediately asked, "What is your relationship with Sir Jeon?" Because of his superior combat ability, few people notice, but to me, he is a legendary craftsman. Having seen countless fakes and imitations of John's work, I only need to glance at this thing to know of its true presence, which is why he pressed John for answers. John was delighted that a high-level professional recognized his genuine work, but he didn't tell the truth, only praising the old man for his discerning eye. Suddenly, the old man's face flushed crimson shyly, as if talking about something embarrassing. To be honest, I am Sir John's most favored disciple in the world. John wasn't surprised about suddenly having a disciple he didn't know about, but he couldn't understand why this guy had such a girlishly shy, gay expression, like a maiden confessing her feelings. He stood there, his face full of confused question marks. Jin had turned back to the artifact to be appraised. He muttered, "This guy can't possibly be related to John," and was about to punch him a few times for faking it. Jin offered him a leather-bound notebook, saying it was something he received when he became a disciple of the saint. He immediately recognized it as his lost notebook. John finally realized that this appraiser was the new recruit who had followed him all over China more than 20 years ago. He pestered him to change professions, but it didn't work. Time flew by, transforming the talkative young man of yesteryear into a middle-aged man full of melancholy. No wonder Jean couldn't remember him. Jin held up the notebook, tears streaming down his face. That day Sir John left, leaving behind the only keepsake that I cherish in my heart. The scene was extremely touching, but to John it was like a cold. He thought he had lost it, but it turned out this guy had stolen the notebook. Jin flipped through a few pages, muttering to himself that he couldn't read the content because the handwriting was too bad. He wanted to follow the crafting ideas in this but couldn't. He secretly thought, those are the blacklisted items I don't want to touch. He closed the book with a thud. His face glowed with kindness as he offered it to Jion, saying, "If you're so passionate about the 13th saint, take this and study it." He immediately took it, remembering that he had conveniently written down some of his designs in it. Now that it was available, it was good. His hand just touched the notebook. The gaze of the god skill allowed him to infuse magic into the notebook immediately. Jin stared in shock at the light seeping into the cover, thinking that the young man in front of him had the ability to read divine artifacts that stored memories. He was about to ask him for the information inside. Outside, the frantic voice of a servant rang out. He pointed outside, reporting, "The saintess has arrived outside." Jin didn't care much. So what if she came? What does it have to do with me? Why is everyone overreacting? Sophia had been patiently waiting outside for a while. The spot where she stood quickly turned into a red carpet for people to take photos and videos, just like an event. She bowed her head inwardly, cursing the annoying crowd. Every time she went out wearing this outfit, they always made such a fuss. Sung-jae stood in the excited crowd, not particularly interested, just hearing that every time she left the temple, she always brought trouble to others. After waiting for more than half an hour, without being invited in by the appraiser, the noisy crowd flashing their lights continuously made Sophia lose all patience. She rushed inside, ignoring the guard at the door who was trying to stop her. Sophia resolutely stepped in, wanting to see who this customer was that Jin valued more than a saintess. To her surprise, she froze for a few seconds, looking at the person in front of her. Oh, my attention was caught by this guy's handsome face. Suddenly, Sophia's heart blossomed. Even as a saintess, she still liked handsome guys very much. She excitedly planned to get closer for a better look. Suddenly, from somewhere, the image of a giant, ferocious snake spirit with its mouth wide open lunged towards Sophia. It scared her face pale. Her whole body collapsed to the ground. What was that thing? Sophia felt sweat pouring down her armpits. She wondered why it felt like hundreds of giant snakes were coiling around her, squeezing tightly and threatening her. Not good at all. Sophia Marty ran outside with a panicked expression, leaving her bewildered subordinates to scramble after her. The two in the shop didn't know why she acted so strangely. John didn't pay much attention, about to go back to the item for appraisal. The system informed him that someone had just approached Zafu. His divine power currently reached 35%. Knowing he was wondering what divine power was, the system immediately reported that it was a type of power bestowed in divine form, requiring an additional trait fitting Jeon's personality. He could steal divine power from others to increase his own divine power. If he let it stay at 0% for too long, he would lose his power. Pointing outside, Jeon wondered, who was the girl who just ran out? Jin asked him back with a confused tone, "How can you not know about the saintess who appears so frequently in the news?" Old man. When he heard it was the Aquarius Saint Sophia, John froze for a second. Then he burst out laughing until tears streamed down his face. Damn it, he thought the saintess was some kind of demon that everyone spoke of with such caution. Turns out it was that woman, huh? It's just a bunch of magic tricks. Her true appearance isn't like that. No wonder Jian didn't recognize her. She used to be pretty, but beneath that face was a rotten, decaying soul, so that beauty could never sway Jian. And in his list of most hated things besides fish bones, flies, and trash, Sophia was a detestable crawling insect that made him feel disgusted. Her skincare routine was more important than human lives. John turned his head and chuckled at Jin, listening to him wonder why people worshipped her as a representative of compassion and forgiveness when she was clearly a selfish and cruel person. From that conversation, he heard from Jin's mouth that Sophia had used the title of the 13th Saint's Knight to gain illicit profits, which only stopped when the government intervened. Seeing John's face wrinkle up as if constipated at that part, Jin wondered if his demeanor meant he was familiar with the saintess. How could he be merely familiar? Say he's her old friend. Sophia ran frantically until she reached a small deserted alley before gradually slowing down. Her subordinate ran after her, asking anxiously for a long time, but she was still too flustered to answer. The incident inside the appraisal shop reminded Sophia of Jian's sharp gaze looking at her that year, fiercely asking, "Do you want to die?" She thought she had buried those old memories deep down. Unexpectedly this time, she was threatened by Jeon's ugly, scarred face, all because that young man somehow instilled dread in Sophia. She ordered her subordinate to go back and investigate the brown-haired guy in the appraisal shop. When the subordinate asked if she should investigate the appraiser as well, Sophia immediately changed her mind. A delighted smile spread across her lips. "I want to kill both of them." The subordinate spoke up to object, asking to keep something, but Sophia brushed them aside. Both of those guys deserve to die. She showed the necklace around her neck to her subordinate, smiling sweetly and saying she was lending them the ancient artifact and the god's power to kill those two. The subordinate still wanted to persuade her further because they were in a neutral zone. Sophia held the bracelet forward, her face smiling gently but exuding a terrifying energy. It made the girl step back immediately. She dared not argue anymore. The will of the saintess is the will of the gods. She knelt on one knee, raising both hands respectfully to receive the bracelet Sophia gave her. She reminded herself, "The will of the saintess is the will of heaven, and the apostles must fulfill it at all costs." Sophia finally looked satisfied, smiling gently. Only then did she retract the shining Aquarius divine image behind her back. Another flick, and she might just make this subordinate log out completely. John, who was chatting with Jin in the shop, suddenly felt his head wet. Was water dripping from somewhere? Outside the downtown area, the city sparkled with the lights of shops and homes. Sungjae left John alone in the appraisal shop, strolling the streets, waiting for him to finish. Suddenly he looked down at his feet and saw something strange. So he stopped and stared intently. The puddle of water beneath his feet, he didn't know where it came from, kept spreading wider even though it wasn't raining. Sungjae bent down to look closer because he detected magic power within it. Suddenly the shadow in the water turned a strange white color. Its two pupils glowed brightly. Then it flung its hand up, wanting to grab Sungjae. The iced milk coffee dropped immediately because of the terrifying sight in front of him. The water coalesced into a human shape crawling towards Sungjae like the crawling ghosts in horror movies. It made his face turn pale. How could there be ghosts in a well-lit place in the middle of the street? Suddenly a scream rang out behind him. Sungjae turned his head and discovered everyone around him saw water ghosts, just like him, emerging from the ground, staring intently at their original forms. The one who caused that scene stood on the rooftop of the building looking down. Who else but Sophia casting the mirror clone? Although the clones only had power equal to A-rank apostles, many bites could kill an elephant, let alone only two people, one old and one young, in that appraisal shop. Sungjae ran back towards the appraisal shop. As soon as he saw the silhouette of the saintess's guard, he screamed, "Why are you using combat skills in a neutral zone like this? Immediately cancel them." She turned back calmly, looking at Sungjae holding an elaborately carved cup in her hand. She said, "This is the saintess's command, so shut your mouth. This is the will of the heavens." She suddenly placed the Holy Grail on the ground, activating the divine artifact, making it glow dazzlingly. Sungjae panicked and lunged to stop her, but it was too late. A pillar of light shot straight up into the night sky, just like a big bang was opening there. Dozens of streams of water emerged from beneath the ground, swirling into large circles, encircling everyone on the street. She cloned that many water ghosts from the people. The female guard assigned them to deal with Jin, and the young man who was a customer in that shop would be dealt with by her own hand. The water ghosts, obeying the command, immediately dashed away, forming the messy puddles of water that John had seen earlier. Sungjae swam in the sphere of water, startled, unable to understand when they had planned this attack. His palm tried to summon power. He had to escape quickly before he passed out. Sungjae's vision blurred, wanting to close. All around him was water. Vast, boundless water. At that moment, Jaeon inside the shop had discovered that this water-containing magic power was not absorbed from rain. He silently watched them drip down more and more. Jin also felt magic power around him, looking around, not yet understanding what was happening. He was already lifted high by the water gathered like a rope. Something sharp shot from behind and pressed tightly against John's neck, but he didn't seem very surprised. The female guard whispered, "Don't move." She didn't want to kill him yet. She explained that this was because he had displeased the saintess. She still didn't forget to threaten him. Resisting means a big belly. "Don't be foolish. The saintess ordered me to kill both of you. But if you two apologize to the saintess, and Jin agrees to buy the divine artifact at a high price, I will speak on your behalf to Sophia." What a kind female guard, stabbing people in the neck with a knife and still offering negotiation terms. Too okay. So much so that the appraiser old man felt like falling asleep. He didn't even bother to answer. Suddenly, he heard Jaeon ask in boredom, "Is it normal to walk around the street with a knife now?" Jin's eyes widened. He stared at the sight of Jaeon crushing the knife handle into pieces with 2 fingers. Was he crazy? In his time, no one dared to carry weapons around like that. John dropped the knife to the ground, smiling, and told Jin, "You calculate how much the damage here is, so they can pay a small amount of money." Seeing Jaeon break the Aquarius divine artifact knife in one go, and it seemed he was enjoying himself, Jin still didn't dare to speak up. What kind of person could do that with bare hands? The subordinate girl probably thought I'm 30 this year, and I've never encountered a case like this before. She angrily asked, "I told you not to move, didn't you hear?" The water ghosts from behind Jin gathered into a pile and shot past, towards John wanting to shut his mouth. But when they arrived, they were like a mess of water splashed from a basin, because one punch from Jaeon had scattered them, falling all over the floor. With that same punch, he smiled kindly and asked, "Hey, do you have more? Tell them to come out. Punching is quite fun." The female guard stepped back a few steps. She looked warily at the young man in front of her, just as the saintess predicted he could punch A-rank water ghosts, barehanded. He was definitely not an ordinary person. If that was the case, she had to eliminate him to avoid endangering the saintess, and that calm look he gave Jin. So annoying. She pulled out the necklace Sophia had given her from her shirt, and flung out a mass of water containing pure magic power personally infused by Sophia. The puddles of water gradually took the form of a pack of wolves. According to the guard, these were 7 orange-rank water wolves. Using orange rank to deal with Jaeon, it's just going to make him laugh. That demonic insect Sophia sure has a grand way of greeting him. He didn't know where he pulled out 2 daggers from asking Jin, "Can I borrow this pair of knives temporarily?" Whether he would return them later depended on his mood. He asked to borrow them without letting Jin answer. John installed an engine in his rear. He shot forward alone, confronting the aggressive pack of water wolves. Wherever he went, he muzzled them. He even roared with delight. "These knives are pretty sharp, I like them. Give them a like." His knife strikes against the water wolves immediately brought back information about Aquarius's magic. He activated a butcher. John charged in, slashing at these A-rank creatures with great pleasure. He cackled. Why is appraising items so much fun? Everywhere his slashes went, Jaeon collected spoils. He received fragments of the mirror clone experience points and all sorts of miscellaneous things related to the water wolves. The saintess's subordinate didn't know how much combat power she had. Now she stood frozen, unable to believe her eyes. The saintess's summoned beasts were killed so easily. Hey, John's call made her so scared her eyeballs almost popped out. This must be the final boss of some villain story, not a strange male protagonist. John was very excited by this stabbing and killing scene, asking her, "Do you have anything else?" "Show it." His eyes were like those of a ferocious beast, staring at the guard who couldn't even move an inch, let alone answer. Knowing she couldn't make a home because there was no door, she turned and fled. John didn't bother chasing after them. Only stubborn ones waste energy, these timid rabbits he ignored. Jin looked at him silently, evaluating him. Suddenly, Sungjae's yell echoed from the door. He was soaked from head to toe, barging in, warning that the Aquarius apostle had just attacked indiscriminately. Unexpectedly, inside the appraisal shop, there was a mess of things after Jaeon's killing spree. Aren't these the summoned beasts of the Aquarius saintess? Aha, those are summoned beasts in the eyes of others, but in Jaeon's eyes these are just raw material fragments for him to pick up. Sungjae urged him to leave, fearing that later the guards would bring more people, which would be annoying. About to leave, Jin screamed. As the two simultaneously turned to look, he hesitated. 20 years ago, I followed Lan to learn crafting methods, so I remember very clearly how he fought monsters and collected materials. So he used all his courage and asked loudly, "Was that battle just now you Jean?" He didn't answer, raising his index finger to his lips, signaling to keep his mouth shut. But from that expression, without him saying anything, everyone knew it. He was still trying to act mysterious. Jin's dreamy and melancholic soul caught the signal immediately. He was moved to tears, crying uncontrollably. John was afraid to wipe his tears, so he turned and left, saying he would talk next time. That much was enough to make Jin ecstatic. He bowed low, shouting, "I hope to see you again, esteemed customer." He nodded slightly and left, leaving the ruined room to the old man. It was indeed an effective way to avoid cleaning the house. Leaving the appraisal shop, Sung Jae and his uncle found a very reasonable place to avoid pursuit, a brightly lit enormous cafe in the middle of the street. It sold all kinds of ice cream and cakes. This guy, though 40 years old, was still scooping spoonfuls of the enormous ice cream into his mouth with great delight. "Sung Jae, it's so delicious. Eat a lot." John's expression looked like he was determined to conquer all the food on the table. Sung Jae hesitated, asking, "It's delicious, but I can tell it's super expensive. Do you have money to pay, big brother?" Of course, Jian had no money, but his scavenging skill was simply superb. He held out what the female guard had dropped, saying he had examined it for a while, and it seemed usable. The yellowish thing with a pouring water pitcher logo seemed to be the Aquarius constellation emblem, used like a credit card and containing some skills of those people. Sung Jae leaned closer, recognizing it as a personal credit card. He feared that if they used it, they would be tracked here. John didn't care that much. Now that he could eat sweets, that was enough. He ignored his nephew, who wasn't in the mood to eat, and kept finishing cup after cup, until Sung-hyuk appeared from nowhere greeting them. Looking at the expressions of these two uncle and nephew, it was clear no one expected the Gemini commander to appear here. He greeted Sung Jae but asked for a seat at the table to talk to Jeon. He recognized Sung-hyuk as the boss who had been bothering Sung Jae these past few days, but he didn't drive him away. He just let him sit down. He immediately asked if he was the guy who killed the Spider Queen that Sung Jae mentioned. He seemed to ignore John's reluctance to answer. He said, "Even Yang Wei couldn't defeat that spider, but a young man like him killed it. That's amazing. So what are you going to do about it?" John moved from the third ice cream box to the fourth continuously. Hearing Sung-hyuk say he was here to find outstanding talents, it was clear he wanted to lure Jeon to his holy association, so he asked him what he had to offer as a bribe. "One of John's 8 divine artifacts will be put up for auction soon. If you're not busy, could we discuss that for a bit?" Finally, John's attention was caught. He put the ice cream spoon down on the table. He put on an expression that said, "My time has come. My time has come. They're auctioning off my artifacts." With ice cream all over his face, Jian looked up and said he was okay. He would go to the auction house immediately. Sung-hyuk didn't mock his dumb, rustic appearance. Instead, he was very friendly, saying that John's artifacts would be displayed in a place of equivalent prestige quite far from them. It was the top auction house high in the sky, called the prosperous fortress city of Drachma. That fortress city was not large in area, but because it was built on a floating island in the sky, it became unique. The place was lavishly decorated, and the Drachma auction house occupied an entire skyscraper to host auctions of one-of-a-kind items in the Drachma waiting hall. Sophia was sitting on a bench, clutching her neck, trying to breathe. She wore the beautiful saintess's outfit, but her whole body trembled, and her face was ashen, as if sitting in a snowstorm. Until a deep voice rang out. It was Stephen Marker grumbling, "Cut that act out. You're ruining my appetite." Sophia glanced at the muscular guy, inwardly cursing, "He's truly all brawn and no brain, but for now I must endure to avoid disaster." The man who surpassed even Jian, standing next to Stephen Marker, made Sophia feel safe. He stood up abruptly and left, not forgetting to remind her with his usual phrase that all of Lan's weapons in this auction would be his. "Don't even dream about them or you'll regret it too late." She called after him full of worry, but the Leo Saint didn't answer and just walked straight out alone in the grand hall. Sophia took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. After all, this was Drachma. Whether it was real or smuggled goods, the person she always feared could not possibly appear here. But the person on the other side of the glass suddenly caught Sophia's attention. It was Hugo standing alone in the walkway. Her mood suddenly changed completely. She felt happy thinking that this guy arrived right on time. There was about to be some fun to watch. Hugo came to this place not for ancient artifacts, but after wandering around for a long time, he still hadn't found his friend John. He thought a place with so many expensive divine artifacts would attract his friend's attention. So he came, but only Mrs. Aquarius came to pick a fight with him. She lightly patted Hugo's shoulder from behind. She smiled and said, "Long time no see, huh?" The smiling Aquarius face under her hood made him shiver. Of all people to meet, he encountered Sophia at this moment. She acted like long-lost friends, starting with, "It's really hard to meet you. It seems even Hugo hasn't defeated time, huh? I remember you used to be a representative of the 12 Saints." Sophia would always seize any opportunity to mock him. How could she ignore the fact that the Sagittarius Holy Association had few members, so Hugo's position was inferior to the others? Still busy looking for his friend, Hugo didn't want to continue talking, waving his hand to dismiss her. But Sophia knew everything except discretion. With a look full of arrogance, she uttered a sentence that successfully froze Hugo. "Be careful. You might lose your child, just like you lost your wife." The fake face of Mrs. Aquarius smiled as she continued to dwell on the matter, repeatedly asking, "Do you think your wife is dead?" Hugo didn't answer, which only encouraged her further. Even as the Sagittarius saint, he would have to watch his family crumble, wouldn't he? Aquarius successfully infuriated a calm person like Hugo. His whole body blazed with furious flames. The spot where the two stood exploded, shattering the wall. Behind the black smoke was Hugo, his whole body engulfed in flames. His eyes burned with rage. "I'm talking to you, get out." Sophia wouldn't leave that easily. She raised her hand to her mouth, giggling. She used water to extinguish the fire on Hugo's arm, reminding him, "We have a 10-year truce. Don't forget that." In fact, seeing Hugo so furious, Aquarius showed her delight. She stepped towards Hugo, asking, "Don't you realize you're just a demigod?" Oh, before Sophia could unleash the water she had just gathered. A voice called out from behind, pulling her back, and a white light erupted. John had just called out, "Hey, bitch!" He had flicked her forehead with 2 fingers, helping her achieve enlightenment immediately. The water droplet mark on Sophia's forehead turned red. Her eyes were all white. It was unclear if she had achieved enlightenment or if she had just logged out. John looked at Sophia's body collapsing to the ground with disgust, while his friend turned to look at him. Oh, friend. Why, at such a tense moment, he heard Hugo worry that he was involved in trivial matters, which was why he came looking for him. John, puzzled, crossed his arms and asked, "Am I a 3-year-old kid? Or do you like me after that overly gay atmosphere?" John closed his robe, and also his butt cheeks moving away from Hugo. But he didn't forget to show a constipated expression, looking at the contorted body on the ground. "Why do I keep running into this bitch everywhere? Don't tell me this demon likes me." Hugo was speechless. What kind of pills did this guy take before coming here? He wondered. In the eyes of the audience, Jean might be someone who became perverse due to excessive power injection, but in Sophia's eyes, he was more than that. Aquarius thought she hated John, but in reality, she was truly afraid of him. Afraid of his face full of deep scars and his aggressive personality. He never forgave anyone who provoked him, and his blind white eyes always cast a sharp, contemptuous gaze towards Sophia, which she could never forget. A day of heavy rain more than 20 years ago. Inside the Aquarius temple, there was a commotion of subordinates, trying to stop John from furiously advancing. The Aquarius mansion's housekeeper ran out, holding out her arms, absolutely refusing to let him pass, only to see his terrifying face under the flashing lightning. He uttered only one word, "Get out." What was going on? Sophia's voice rang out, making him turn to see her in a nightgown. Annoyed, she crossed her arms and asked, "What on earth do you think you're doing daring to barge into this place?" With a crash, John threw his bandaged fist into the wall after Sophia, scaring her half to death. His eyes burned with anger, clearly showing the dark brown scars. He growled, "Do you really want to die?" Aquarius tried to be as firm as possible, asking, "What in the world are you doing here?" This only infuriated Jeon. He asked her why she was still lingering in the temple when he had sent her to the rear to treat people attacked by those disastrous beasts. He squeezed her hand, yelling, "Their limbs were torn off trying to protect you. Don't you know that?" He didn't say any more. He grabbed her wrist and dragged her away, forcing Sophia to save people at all costs. "No one cares if those people die. Dying to protect me and humanity is an honor. Why do you look down on saints like that? I've endured enough of humanity's curses. I don't want to clean up that mess. Her stubborn words made John freeze. He turned his bandaged face towards her and asked, "What did you just say?" Covering her nose, calling John smelly like an owl, Sophia affirmed that she would absolutely not go to treat the wounded. She would go home, get some sleep, and then put on makeup for an interview tomorrow. She flung her recently squeezed wrist out of Joan's hand. Sophia was still wincing at the swelling from his tight grip with a look of disdain. John's hand shot out, slapping Aquarius across the face, making her almost spit out her mouth. He yelled at her with an angry voice that echoed throughout the temple, then dragged her away to treat the wounded until she was exhausted and fainted. So for Sophia, Lon was a damn scoundrel. As she cursed him fiercely, John's face appeared, asking, "Sleep well, bitch." Sophia's eyes snapped open, realizing she had just drooled in her sleep. Her whole body was tied tightly to a chair. In front of her was John with his familiar contemptuous face, and Hugo standing beside him. She realized she was in the hands of the person she feared most. Aquarius screamed in fear. Her voice echoed throughout the building. After screaming, she started babbling again. "Who do you think you are to dare do this to a saintess? Untie me immediately." He wanted to slap her again. This woman's mouth was annoying. Whether it had been 20 years or 200 years, it probably hadn't changed a bit. Sophia's mind raced, telling herself she was no longer afraid of him like 20 years ago. Today she would deal with him. Her hands glowed with an acidic light to melt the ropes. Sophia's plan was to escape this place and then find Stephen Marker to give these guys a good beating. She took another hit. Her forehead almost split open. Trembling, she lowered her head, both angry and bitter. Jeon's smoking index finger reminded her not to show her thoughts on her face. Did she hear him? And what was that smoking on his middle finger? Aquarius snapped her head up and cackled. Showing off. That's an acid self-defense skill that activates whenever there's violence against her. She shrieked with delight. Sophia's head was filled with images of John in agony, his whole body corroded by acid, kneeling and begging her for mercy. Aha, the strongest skill, huh? I also have something very strong. He showed her his middle finger. The acid had disappeared long ago, but he was not foolish enough to brag about his amazing self-healing ability. That made Aquarius gasp in horror, screaming loudly, unable to believe her eyes. "All right, we've had our fun chat, haven't we? Allow Lon to settle the score for what happened between us. I heard you claimed to be my physician, huh?" First punch. "Those trivial terrorists in the appraisal shop, you sent them right? Nearly 10 of them, but 5 punches for knowing each other. What on earth did you say to Take-Su earlier? Another 50 punches. Looking at her tear-stained face, John kept his Buddha-like hand and asked, "Well, is there anything else you want to say after waiting for a while and hearing nothing?" He lunged his hand forward. "Here, wait for us. You didn't even play cards and lose, but you still have to get flicked on the forehead." Her continuous cries of protest filled the air. Hugo didn't bother to intervene. That's how his weird friend was. Whether male or female, they got hit just the same. Even though John had every reason to do so, Hugo would never hit a woman. At most, he would just scratch a wall like before. But wait, were his eyes playing tricks on him? Why did he feel like John's divine power was increasing with each flick? Hugo wasn't mistaken. With each flick to Aquarius's forehead, he absorbed her divine power. The invincible forehead-flicking saint was fired up. Sophia suddenly collapsed inexplicably. A swollen forehead and foaming at the mouth were signs that she had fainted. John just stopped, and the system instantly popped up before his eyes. 1. Congratulations. Your current divine power has reached 50%, and the divine power state has been successfully unlocked. What new terminology is this? Why don't you Google it for me? What is the divine state friend? It was only because he was an abandoned child, not blessed by any zodiac, that he didn't know it was the power to maintain the divine artifact. Knowing late also had its advantages, because the system told him if he didn't have it, he should steal it. Whether it was divine power or the divine state, ultimately, he still had to steal to get it. Good system. Jeon rubbed his confused head. Just a few flicks, and he had already absorbed 20% of the divine power from Aquarius. Why didn't he get any when he beat Yang Wei black and blue before? Was it because the skill wasn't unlocked then? And now he received news that he could still increase his power. John felt happy and wasn't annoyed anymore. The way to increase power was generally easy. Just punch others to steal it. Hugo stood behind him, reminding him to interrogate this Aquarius woman about the knife, but Jian waved him off. This woman definitely wasn't the one who dared to stab him in the back. Besides, he had found someone who could investigate for him. Hugo nodded, indicating he understood, but in his head he criticized his friend, realizing he had just been looking for an excuse to torment Aquarius. Suddenly his phone vibrated in his pocket. Hugo leaned his head in, curiously asking him where he got the phone. John vaguely replied that he borrowed it from an acquaintance. Then, showing off his strong, healthy teeth, he said he was going to the auction hall. Hugo could throw that Aquarius woman wherever he wanted. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared immediately. Typical of someone who sets things up for others to clean. Only he and the girl who had just woken up after being flicked unconscious remained. Suddenly the door opened again. Hugo thought his friend had forgotten something and came back, but the new arrival made him extremely tense. There are 8 billion people in the world. Why does this bearded guy keep appearing? In front of Hugo, Stephen Marker appeared prominently, just like the male lead of a story. His eyes immediately noticed Aquarius tied to a chair unconscious behind Hugo. Hugo had no intention of explaining. He just stared at Stephen, who suddenly became irritable. A bunch of golden lightning crackled around him as he asked, "Hey Hugo, what are you doing here?" Just asking, why does it sound so threatening? Is Aquarius actually Stephen's girlfriend? He took off his expensive golden glasses, looking as cool as a toilet bowl with a werewolf-like appearance. He reminded Hugo that they hadn't met in a long time, but there was no need to fight. Who would be free? Who would be happy to meet this muscular guy? Stephen looked at Aquarius, who looked just like a dog that had eaten poison. He said that he and she had formed an alliance. An alliance of you and I. Only 2 people, huh? Roughly so. Now tell me, why are you here? Hugo probably thought that asking this question Hugo would reveal it. Going somewhere is a personal right. Why ask? Stephen tucked his glasses into the chest of his tight-fitting shirt, smacking his lips as he asked, "Did you come here for John's divine artifact?" "Oh, probably not. Because even if you did, you wouldn't have the money to buy it, right?" Damn it. He knew Hugo was poor, but this guy and that woman were truly a pair made for each other. Each of them would open their mouths and relentlessly dig into Sagittarius's poverty. With a blurry smile, he showed off his strong, healthy teeth. Hugo asked Stephen directly, "Are you still collecting the divine artifacts that Jian created? From those ancient days when John still existed among the 13 saints, Stephen had always felt inferior to him. He used John as a benchmark, striving to surpass him. For a long time, he had been trying to collect all divine artifacts related to him. Don't tell me you think that continuing to do that will make you as strong as Jian, right?" Stephen, without saying a word, blew away the dust and rocks beneath Hugo's feet. Indeed, Hugo's words had hit a nerve. He intended to just playfully flick him, but unexpectedly Stephen actually blew away the floor. Hugo cautiously called the fire to envelop himself. He saw that Stephen's hands were full of electricity. The brute didn't strike Hugo, but grabbed his wrist, extinguishing the flames. Hugo's face paled, feeling the increasing force in Stephen's hand. His eyes fiercely warned, "Don't do anything reckless." With each word Stephen spoke, his fingers bulging with muscle tightened a bit more. He reminded Hugo, "You're just an idiot, so don't mention John in front of me." As soon as he finished, he twisted Hugo's arm. His whole body erupted with the image of the divine artifact behind him. To prove his power far surpassed that damned Jian. "Saint, we have news?" The subordinate came to report that the Gemini group had purchased all of Jian's items. He suddenly turned around. He forcefully pushed Hugo away, no longer intimidating him, and immediately left with his subordinates. Hugo called after him for Stephen to take that woman away, but the brute didn't pay much attention. He even told Hugo to do whatever he wanted. Now the auction was the priority, and that woman could wait. Before leaving, he didn't forget to kindly add, "If you want to live, control yourself carefully." Hugo curled his lip mockingly. "Your reminder is so touching, it's making my heart cold." After such a noisy battle with smoke and fire, Aquarius was still snoring, waiting until Stephen was far away. Hugo dared to look down at his hand, severely burned by the Leo Saint's electric shock. A feeling of inferiority surged in Hugo's heart. He knew he wasn't well at all because he was always the weakest among the 12 blessed zodiacs. The drachma auction house was dazzling with lights, like a paradise. Through the glass of the hallway, he saw the VIP room's door was locked and bolted. In the auction area, the excited female host hammered down an item for Gemini. Now they would take a break to prepare for the second round. "Just waiting for that?" The young man in the room let out a joyful yell. John had acquired another interesting item. Sungyuk, sitting next to him, congratulated him on getting what he wanted. At this moment, John scratched his head, thanking him awkwardly. Thanks to him inviting him into the VIP room and letting him shop freely. John was able to gather all these items. Sungyuk adjusted his glasses and reiterated that this was all to recruit him into the Gemini Holy Association, not noticing Sungjae beside him, who had already calculated that it cost billions of dong. He glanced at Sungjae and asked him to pay for the wine, saying he forgot his card. Sungjae didn't dare to disobey his boss and was about to search his pockets for money. John already held out a black card, casually saying, "This treat's on me." Sungyuk reached into his empty pocket. When did this guy get a black card without him knowing? John waved the card in his hand, reminding him seriously, "No matter what, you shouldn't ask your subordinates to pay for, you should you." Being told directly like that, Sungyuk didn't dare to object. Outwardly, he said, "Okay," but gradually realized that this guy looked naive, but liked to lord it over others. Nevertheless, he successfully defeated the Spider Queen. Sungyuk's mission was to utilize this talent for his holy association. After a while, when John had drunk a lot of wine, Sungyuk began the main topic of the day, with a long string of praises for the young man's S or SS rank potential. If blessed by the Aries Association, he would surely be formidable. John took a sip of wine, realizing the faint purple mist that Sungyuk had just released had the effect of manipulating others' minds. Just like a multi-level marketing guy talking about joining the organization and making $1,000 a day, Sungyuk used all his silver tongue skills to sway him. Money, jewels, wealth, glory, admired career. Just join the Aries Association and you'll have it all. All free, absolutely free. Join and gain power stronger than mine. Come take my hand. Let's conquer the path to the top of Aries together. Multi-level marketing. It sounded powerful and convincing, but suddenly Jian burst out laughing as if it were harvest season. "I'm so happy today, that was a great speech." Suddenly he changed his expression and asked in a deep voice, "So you mean for me, Jian, to become the hunting dog of that bald pig?" Choi Sungyuk suddenly felt sweat pouring down his head. The person in front of him, who was just a casual country boy, now seemed to be getting angry, about to change the subject to cool the atmosphere. From outside the door, the auction staff's voice rang out, asking permission to enter to deliver the newly acquired item. He looked at the rubbish that the female staff member had just held out, thinking, "My own item, I'll take it. But they're even talking about giving me a power of attorney later. How absurd." Only then did Sungyuk realize that he had just acquired an item belonging to St. John. He smiled, holding the necklace with the number 8 on it, saying, "This will be quite useful to me." Sungyuk thought to himself, "I'm such an idiot. I was distracted for a moment, and this young man acquired Steven's item. If Steven rushes in and punches everyone in the nose, it'll be a disaster." He was about to advise John to return it. The VIP room door was bombed by someone scattering debris everywhere. Thick smoke and dust made all 4 of them turn to look. They saw Steven charging in, furiously muttering curses, his face more strained than a master who had just lost his beloved dog. He growled, "Who touched my item?" "So it's an acquaintance." John turned to look at the brutish thug who had kicked open the door, half surprised and half not knowing this was the person hunting for his divine items. Choi Sungyuk stepped forward, playing the charismatic and diplomatic battle god, apologizing profusely and blaming the uncouth new guy from the countryside. Steven, seeing the commander's attitude, became less aggressive. Just returning the item would be fine. Seeing that Choi Sungyuk suggested that Steven go to the reception to pay and then collect the item. Unexpectedly, the brute sneered mischievously. He grabbed Sungyuk's head and asked, "Are you going to touch my item and then run away?" He trembled under the large hand, not daring to resist, only cursing inwardly. This big guy is looking for an excuse to take the item without paying. "Hey, stop barking for me!" John's voice from the sofa made both of them turn to look. "Hey, I won the auction, so I bought it. Why are you demanding it like that? If you like it so much, I'll sell it for 200 billion plus protection fees. Do you agree?" Steven didn't know who this absurd guy in front of him was to be so arrogant. A few seconds later, he burst out laughing. He didn't expect anyone in the Aries Holy Association to be so loud. Choi Sungyuk wanted to collapse. Was this kid trying to commit suicide? How dare he provoke even the Leo saint? Men should be like that. What's the point of talking to me with nothing but teeth and balls? Steven pushed Sungyuk aside. He advanced threateningly towards Jian, his hands crackling with electricity and other effects, but he put on an act suggesting, "Let's introduce ourselves, young man." "Then I'll introduce myself with the most reputable electrifying neck twist," John asked, with a provocative smirk. What strange barking is he doing? In his head, he thought, this guy also has the potential to show off much stronger than before. Indeed, this zodiac is very suitable for combat. Confrontation is inevitable. The king of the jungle is different. He likes brute force, although his fighting spirit is not as persistent as Aries or Aquarius. But with this level of progress, one cannot help but praise the excellent Leo. Once power is displayed, no matter what is said, the person must be torn apart to vent anger, right? John wanted to advise Stephen, but he didn't say anything. He just let the enormous hand come towards him. As the large fingers touched John's shoulder, electricity stirred the air, scattering. The people around were scared out of their wits, just wanting to run away. "This is it. Grandpa's feet are completely cold." Sung Jae still tried to scream, "Oh, uncle," while Sung Hyuk was singing "Die" with a smile in his head. Stephen didn't intend to kill him, just paralyze his legs so he could use a wheelchair. But strangely, a relaxed smile appeared on the young man's lips. He yelled, "Hey, are you dusting my clothes?" Stephen didn't understand what had just happened, because the move he had used definitely had a direct impact on the person. There was no way it could miss. Did the person use teleportation to redirect my attack? Gemini people are best at this, but John isn't. He pushed Stephen's hand away and continued to curse. Truly a brute with a simple mind and well-developed limbs. "Haha, your stone wall has been neutralized by me. Are there any other skills that can affect me? I remember then, you begged me to teach you to save humanity. Now you're showing off your power like a clown young man, not to mention the fierce killing intent emanating from Jaeon." That story, of course, only the 13th Saint and Stephen knew, so he turned pale, not understanding who this guy was. Suddenly, in the auction hall, a voice welcomed, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second round." Stephen immediately turned his attention to that, no longer paying attention to Jeon. He turned away and pointed at Jeon, saying, "The auction is important and needs to be resolved first. Keep that necklace safe. I'll come for it later." As soon as Stephen left, Sung Jae immediately ran to Jeon to check if he had any dents on his body. Only his shoulder shirt was torn like a dog bite, Sung Hyuk saw, but dared not approach to ask. How he dodged just now, while a saint-level attack from Stephen could not be redirected. Even an S-rank commander like Sung Hyuk couldn't do that. This strange calmness only made Sung Hyuk more curious. Who on earth was this young man? In the second round of the auction, the female host immediately showed off. This is a divine artifact that everyone has been waiting to see. You probably remember the Berlin incident 24 years ago, where an island in Germany, a strange mist lingered in the area, melting all kinds of weapons and terrifying towers, so much so that the 12 saints had no way to enter that area except for hero John. Now we will reveal the divine artifact that Jaeon once used to subdue the calamity. Stephen couldn't help but smile finally. That item was about to be his. He still remembered that day 24 years ago on the inviolable island in Germany. Helicopters hovered over the island, constantly updating news. It had been 4 days since Jeon entered, and no one knew what was inside because he hadn't come out. Many saints, including Stephen, tried to enter, but the furthest they could reach was still the edge of the central area. Stephen was not reconciled. John could go in alone while he couldn't, even though he was fully equipped and had an escorting army. He sat there thinking for a long time, trying to find the difference between himself and that scarred bastard that caused such a huge disparity in power. Suddenly, a subordinate pointed to the right, reporting that John had come out and brought something that Stephen was sure was the answer he had been looking for all this time. The journalists looked at the scene of Jean coming out with astonishment. He had really returned intact, carrying a huge bone. At that time, John always wore a mask when going out to avoid scaring old women and children. Another achievement was snatched by John, but this time Stephen wasn't angry. He seemed to have enlightened something important, just quietly calling for his troops to retreat. Seeing the saint throw away the weapon in his hand, his subordinate asked in surprise, then learned that Stephen had something better for himself. As soon as he saw Jeon come out, Stephen looked at him and knew the answer. Something that just by having it, he would be on par with John. It was weaponry. So now in the auction hall, when they unveiled the strongest weapon Jean used in the Berlin wolf battle that year, everyone focused their attention on it. John also peeked to see what it was. As soon as the cloth was pulled back, Stephen couldn't help but smile. That was what he had been waiting for all this time, to become unmatched. the huge bone John had carried when he left the Misty Island. Outside the Drachma Tower, where the solemn auction event was taking place, under the moonlight, a strange creature suddenly leaped down. It was clearly a calamity. It landed its claws on the top of the tower in silence. It also came here for John's divine artifact, but it had no money to buy it, so now it intended to freeload. Please welcome Aries' dog Bone. The camera zoomed in on the huge bone. The audience gasped in astonishment. They had only seen it in historical records before. They never expected to have the opportunity to see it with their own eyes now. Does that mean the textbook says this is John's classic weapon? That's a bit much. The MC boasted about how luxurious this item was, and the crowd roared 10 times louder while he stood there, remembering the event 24 years ago. It was true, he used that bone to fight calamities, but was it really that divine? He wondered. Just as he called Sung Jae to tell his nephew the truth, he turned back and yelled, "I'm busy. Talk later." Then both Sung Jae and Sung Hyuk buried their heads in despair because the Gemini Holy Association couldn't acquire this item. The Aries dog bone started at a price of $1 million. The whole audience erupted from 5 to 10, then soaring to $30–50 million. With each price shouted, the system continuously reported John's reputation and experience, points increasing to the point of almost crushing him. He still felt his brain was foolish. He was about to ask what was so special about the Aries dog bone that everyone was fighting over it. Were they going to buy it to lick it? He was immediately met with Sung Jae's scolding. Sung Jae thought he was a naive country bumpkin who didn't understand anything, but all the items that Hero John had ever used, whether it was a toothpick or a pair of rubber sandals used for digging dirt, as long as it was an item made by Jeon, it would drive people crazy. He pointed to Stephen Marker, a collector of ancient artifacts, specializing in collecting John's divine weapons from all over the world. Because the Leo Saint was an overwhelmingly powerful fighter, everyone tried to avoid provoking him during divine weapon auctions. Thinking that most of Jeon's divine weapons were in Stephen's cabinet made him very angry. He just tried to comfort himself that all the profits from the auction would be transferred to Jeon's account, managed by the government. Wait a minute, pause for about 5 seconds. That means no matter who buys it, the money goes into my pocket. Okay, whoever buys it, buy it. Bid higher. John would never wonder why the audience kept pouring money into buying the dog bone again. He enjoyed the feeling of it going from 70 to 90, then 100 million into his pocket. Suddenly a loud roar echoed from below the stands, 1 billion. He was chewing popcorn when suddenly he choked. Sung Jae's eyes widened, Sung Hyuk's eyes widened, and everyone stared dumbfounded towards the person who had just shouted that number. Who else but Stephen, hands in his pocket, stepping down, repeating with a face that said, "It's all mine, it's all mine. 1 billion, sell me that bone now." The MC up there, still not recovered, stammered, 1 billion. The audience, even if they shaved all their heads and sold everything they owned, wouldn't have enough money. How could they compete with Stephen? Sung Jae was not reconciled. Sung Hyuk was not reconciled. John felt breathless, so nervous. Finally, the hammer slammed down, sealing the deal. The Aries dog bone was officially sold for $1 billion. In the hallway, several janitors pushed their carts discussing the dog bone that someone bought for $1 billion. One person clicked their tongue. Workers like him could never dream of a fraction of that money. He wished something big would change his life. As soon as he finished speaking, both heard a sound. Outside the glass door of the Drachma building was the entire face of a calamity staring inside. Don't tell me. It heard a prayer and appeared here. If this move is wrong, I retract my previous statement. Inside the auction hall, Stephen had successfully touched his dream weapon. The new owner of the Aries dog bone had now appeared before the eager eyes of everyone in the audience, who were cheering wildly. Suddenly, the entire ceiling collapsed, burying a bunch of shouting people. Stephen approached the spot to see what it was not forgetting to carry his bone. In the enormous hole, a bunch of black hair emerged as if someone had just hired a shampoo commercial model. But this model looked very muscular. His eyes were brighter than headlights. The audience screamed and ran their balls dropping, leaving the calamity like a horse-faced titan sweeping its eyes looking for Jean's divine artifact. What's more disgusting than just bidding on your favorite item and having someone come begging for it? The calamity opened its long mouth full of fangs. Its landing coordinates were Stephen, who was holding the Aries bone, and it lunged down. Of course, Stephen wasn't afraid of anyone. His eyes glowed. He held one end of the bone and swung the calamity, sending it flying backward. just like a baseball player hitting an enormous ball. It smashed 2 buildings consecutively. Stephen's cackling laughter echoed in the chaos. This is the first time I have to thank the calamities for appearing. Ha ha ha. The Ares dog bone, without a glass case, reappeared next to Stephen, extremely dashing. He had just experienced the power from the divine artifact he had long craved, so he was uncontrollably excited. Even if another pack of calamities charged at him, it would still be okay. Stephen had just finished laughing when he immediately shut up. The opposite tower, which had taken a hit from the enormous calamity, was collapsing uncontrollably. That was the teleportation zone's tower. Once it fell, it would blow away the entire island below. Indeed, whichever contractor took on this tower must have made more than half a profit, as it exploded above a thunderous sound echoed below. Debris scattered, falling on the heads of people who were strolling below. They were enjoying their September 2nd National Day holiday, walking around with flags. What was this strange thing, old man? In the crowd, a girl screamed, "If all the fragments fall, this island will collapse. All apostles, let's gather our strength to stop them." People from different holy associations nearby heard the SOS signal. They immediately spoke up, working together to provide support. Hundreds of people below gathered their strength into a sphere, pouring all their energy into it, shooting donations into the channel, creating a magnificent sight. But within a few seconds they realized. Fragments of the tower fell with a clatter, startling everyone. They ran for their lives. Hugo's roar, the rage of Apollon, appeared right above them. A swirling firestorm incinerated all the remnants of the tower. A moment after the fire gradually died down, the people below realized they had just been perfectly saved. Not a single fragment could be seen. It turned out to be the Sagittarius Saint. Hugo was flying above with his magnificent rocket bow. It had been a long time since he had such an opportunity to make a grand appearance before the public. He waved, accepting their thanks, not forgetting to curse that damned uncontrollable Leo. Suddenly, not far away, a violent explosion echoed. Another calamity, completely different in color, burrowed out of the ground and was slowly approaching the crowd. It had the shape of a skinned dog, with a skeleton covering its outside like armor. Hugo shivered as he realized it was a different calamity from the previous one. This place was going to become a battlefield. From the calamity's mouth, a thick black liquid poured out. At first, it looked like blood, but it was even darker. It flowed all over the ground, then suddenly sprang up. Like living creatures, they rushed towards the civilians and attacked. They lunged and clung directly to the faces of the unfortunate people, growing long, covering their eyes, noses, and mouths, making them gradually unable to move. Hugo's eyes blazed with fire. How dare this beast harm civilians right under the eye of a divine being? He drew his bow, about to release an arrow. From behind, he heard a fierce roar. Taeksu turned his eyes, showing strange astonishment, because right behind him appeared a green calamity. It opened its mouth wide, full of sharp alligator-like teeth, wanting to turn him into its dinner. Taeksu didn't have time to react or dodge. He could only stare at the jaws of the vicious calamity, just as he thought he was about to depart to meet his deceased wife. A powerful force impacted the calamity's side, sending it flying a distance. That was John, who used his internal power kick to save him from a clear defeat. He loudly shouted at his friend, "Hey, Taeksu, calm down." Then, he used more force to kick the calamity even further. The calamity had no time to resist and just flew like a ball on a soccer field. Landing on the ground with John, Taeksu looked at him with grateful eyes, his face beaming as he said, "Thank you." Unexpectedly, he was met with a cold splash of water and a continuous, relentless rap. "Hey, you were still in your saint form during the fight, so why are you weaker than a half-baked guy like me? I'm disgusted just watching you. Even a worm will turn." Taeksu stood up and retorted, "What are you talking so much about?" I tried my best. Their argument was intensifying. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the blue sky, interrupting the debate between the two close friends. Jian and Taeksu turned their heads to look in the direction of the sound. They saw Stephen holding the white bone flying towards them, his whole body covered in electric sparks. "Huh," Stephen yelled loudly. "How dare you interrupt my divine artifact experience?" Stephen yelled so loudly that even the lurking calamity had to raise its head and roar in the background. "Damn it, now there's another crazy saint here." Electric light began to spread everywhere. He and Jeon stared dumbfounded at Stephen, who was rushing towards the two calamities like a madman. Once again he yelled, "Get the hell out. Don't block the Great Bones show." John looked blank, not understanding why he was so angry, but Taixu seemed to realize the reason. The closer Stephen got, the angrier he looked. He raised his hand to unleash his imperial skill, summoning a golden-white shield that covered a section of the sky, completely separating the inside and outside. Standing proudly outside the shield with one of the two calamities, Stephen smiled confidently. This stage belongs to your daddy. He was very excited to try out the new weapon he bought for 1 billion. People usually put their money where their mouth is. He thought this bone was a 1-in-1,000-year treasure. One hand in his pocket, the other carrying the enormous bone, Stephen faced the calamity bravely without any fear or panic. The struggling crowd, seeing him appear, became joyful and excited. Oh, it's Mr. Stephen, the strongest saint who surpassed John is here. The cheers grew louder, encouraging Stephen as he approached the green calamity, dragging the white bone beside him, muttering, "Now it's time to pay for your reckless actions. Brace yourself for this." His powerful arms swung the white bone high with intense vigor. He slammed it down, hearing a whooshing sound. The atmosphere suddenly paused. He realized something was wrong. The surrounding crowd also felt something was wrong. Even the calamity felt it wasn't right. It was hit, but something was strange. Stephen lifted the bone from the calamity's head, moved it to the right, then to the left. Inspecting above and below, the calamity even kindly helped him look. He scratched his head, puzzled, then returned to his fighting stance. Stephen once again swung the bone at the monster's head. 1 swing, 2 swings, then 3 swings. As he swung, he yelled in a standard tone from a superhero fighting monster script. But all his attacks were still like scratching an itch for the calamity. It roared in annoyance and kicked Stephen in the face, deforming his face. He flew like a volleyball on the court. He wondered why John's weapon wasn't working. He had clearly used his full strength. John lightly touched the shield created by Stephen, knowing he couldn't get out temporarily because that brute had used his imperial skill. Cracking his knuckles, John cursed. "If I get out of here today, Stephen's dead. How dare even a saint use an imperial skill? This gorilla is tired of living." Another thing to pay attention to was that there were 2 calamities. One was with Stephen, so the other one would be with the people trapped inside the imperial skill. Before they could punch that monstrous red thing, the 2 of them still had to deal with the wavering crowd at their feet. They were mind-controlled by the calamity to be puppets holding them back.